2, 1. Here we are. Wait, hang on. Hang on.
We're not here.
Hang on. I need to check and make sure that we have enough space to actually record this podcast. Before I forget, we're good. Let me just make sure my trash is cleared. All live on the podcast. Trash is empty. We're good. All right, here we are. We don't want to mishap like we had a couple weeks ago.
No.
That was not good. We were
Never
filming and we got like over an hour into things and everything just stopped. And my hard drive was full and I literally thought we lost everything and I had a mini mental breakdown for a minute there.
I mean, at this point, is it a podcast episode if it doesn't stop at one point?
Yep. We've done a couple without stopping, I think.
Yeah, we make it every once in a while.
I think at this point, the last couple of the stops were out of our control. We had to stop for the bug guy last time.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't remember what else we needed to stop for. But here we are. This is the David the Dog Trainer podcast. Are we on 15?
This is 15.
We're on 15.
Nice.
Today we are joined by Margot and Emma.
Margot.
Hey.
Hello.
Margot.
Who you called Margot on the other
Yeah, and you
other
called me the
episode.
fuck out over it.
It's like, by the
You're
way,
like, hey, motherfucker, it's Margot.
you trained
Listen.
me and my dog.
Sometimes I just read what's in front of me without actually processing what it is. So,
But then wouldn't we say
My bad.
Margot?
Margot,
It still doesn't make sense.
I'm sounding things out. Listen.
I was like, that's my question, but that's not my
yeah.
name.
Whatever. Listen. I don't know what to tell you. Josh, what's going on? Everybody, what's going on?
You know, a lot of editing.
Yeah?
Just trying to get ready for Florida tomorrow.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. For
Tomorrow's
my
his birthday.
Tomorrow is Josh's birthday. Happy birthday. Maybe we'll sing later. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm going to be 32.
32. Are you that old?
I am that old.
Damn.
I know.
Ancient.
Wow.
How
How's
do
that
you
feel?
Feels like the new 20, man.
Does it? 32, though, is not that old.
No, it's not.
You know, like I feel like a lot of people get all up in arms over like that number.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
or the plus 30 number.
Yeah, it's the 30 number that people get freaked out about. It's like, I guess I have to stop and take my life seriously now.
Do you, though?
How did you handle 30? Were you like, oh, bring it on?
Yeah, I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Now that it's 32, though, it's hitting different.
Yeah.
don't hit like it used to.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Cool. What are you guys up to? What's good?
Educating the youth.
Educating the youth of America.
Boom.
Via the podcast.
Yep.
I'm not educating the youth. I'm marketing magazines.
So Emma and Margot are they are former / current clients who have done some dog training with us before and have shown a very positive interest in the dog training world, and have been the providers of many a great question on the podcast.
Yes.
Virtually all of them, every time I've said them, Josh is like, wow, that's a really good question. Wow, these are really great
is.
questions.
We haven't had any like bad questions.
It's
which
true.
is surprising.
They're pretty thoughtful, good questions. So, we had talked. Every time we've spoken about dog training related things, I feel like it's sparked a very interesting conversation. So we figured, let's do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Do it live.
Oh God.
You know?
You know what I do always think of is the first time you did a question podcast, you posted like, we're going live in an hour, send me your questions.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I was like mad dashing, like I'm on Zoom with the kids. I'm like, let me think of some questions. What do I have on top of my mind? And then in the next episode.
You were questioning while you were teaching?
Always.
If the parents are listening and my boss is listening, I wasn't. But I did look. I looked at it. Okay. Well, my co-teacher's teaching, whatever. Anyways, and then in the next episode, someone had this time to think it out. It wasn't a mad dash. And it was like one of the most beautifully written questions that I've ever heard. And she like had this whole paragraph. I was like, if only I had the time. Like I literally had 10 minutes. It was like, we're going live in an hour.
I actually know what question you're talking
It
about.
was
That was the
so
one from
good.
Courtney. That was the 2-part question, Poncho's
Yeah.
owner.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember reading it and just being like, wow, this is like, there's so much depth to this. We had to like
Yes.
break it down into like 3
Yeah.
or 4 parts.
Like when you were reading it out, I was like, wow. Like I
That
just,
was
that was my, it was
Yeah.
so good.
Beautifully formed question. What about your question that you messaged him on Instagram when we were drunk?
Oh my God.
Oh, I remember that
am
one
I
too.
A psycho?
I was like receiving like message.
Yeah. Yeah, I was literally like sitting on a couch, just absolutely blacked out, and with Margot, of course. And and usually when we get drunk or sober, we're just talking about dogs and dog training and just going insane about it. So we're just sitting there like, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And just going back and forth. And then I woke up and I was like, I actually hate myself a little bit, but it's okay, you
She
know?
texted me and she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I was like, it's fine. We're going to learn some things.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
fine.
Literally, after that, I was like, I need to get myself off social media because I cannot.
Hey, pull
be
that
doing
mic a little
this.
closer.
Oh, and so
There we go.
Oh, okay. I like deleted it off my home screen, turned off the notifications because I was like, I'm a monster. I can't do
I'm a
this.
horrible person. It's okay because Emma, you became a client because Kate and I would drunkenly come into platform all the time and tell you needed to train Huey.
I know.
That was
and
it.
You guys are right.
Emma is also the platform sponsor of the David the Dog Trainer podcast. If it were a little later and I didn't need to go to work later, I would crack open a few beers right now. But screw
It's
it.
11:30.
Honestly, the lateness is less the concern. It's more that I have lessons to do.
It
So.
is 5 o'clock somewhere.
Oh,
Come on now, parrot head over here.
We were just talking about
Parrot
Jimmy
head.
Buffett for like 10 minutes before we started this podcast. So
It is the season of island
This-
vibes.
Island time.
of Island Vibes.
I don't know what to tell you. So, we're going to talk about some dog training things. We're going to talk about some dogs, and we're just going to see where this conversation takes us. So, why don't you guys share a little bit about your journey into having well-behaved dogs? Who wants to start?
Do you want to start?
I don't care either way.
You can start.
Okay, I'll go first.
End
Okay.
it with a bang.
So I, like a year and a half ago, got this little puppy. He's so cute. His name's Huey. You can see him on the Instagram. Look out for him. And he's always wearing a bandana so that I can tell him apart from the other black and white dogs at Miracle.
Particularly Lexi. You remember Lexi?
I remember like,
Yeah. Lexi and Huey are clones.
They're
Oh, okay.
twins, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, and so I can never tell which one my dog is. And anyways, I got this dog, and we were really big believers, my boyfriend and I, of like, we're going to train the dog ourselves. We can put all this work in. Like, oh, he's sitting. He can twirl. Like, wow, he's the greatest behaved dog. And then I have Margot over here. We're just starting to become friends. She's like, Emma, take your dog to training. And I'm like, I don't think we need it. She's like, take your dog to training. Then I'm like meeting David and Kate up at platform. They're like, take your dog to training. And I'm thinking like, no, we can do this on our own. Like 8 months hits. And then I'm like borderline tears every time I'm walking my dog because he just wants to like yank me and barrel roll and like do all these things that are just like driving me insane. And then that 50% off during COVID hit of the Miracle Gate. And it was the greatest thing ever. Yeah. It literally, the moment I saw it, I think I called you.
I'm pretty
within 10
positive
minutes.
that you were the first person to sign up.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive, actually, in that sale.
Yeah. Like I saw it within minutes. I
Yeah,
said to Jack, I was like, we have to do this.
Yeah.
Signed up, and my life was absolutely changed. And because when your dog has structure in life and you know how to implement the structure, it is just makes the life is just so cohesive. So then I just became obsessed with dog training because I was like, this is so amazing what you can do and how you can live with your dog.
Was there a specific moment that you were like, I want to start researching dog training related things, like post training, where you were like, I'm starting to get really involved in this past just like owning a dog?
Yeah, I think that probably once we were done with the training and we had gone through the sessions and I saw the difference it made in my dog, and I was like talking to people about it.
Yeah.
Is when it was. When I was trying to express to people like why we use the tools that we use with our dog, what benefits it has, and then I could just kind of wanted to know, like, I could tell them this works for my dog, this is great, but I wanted to know more to explain to them, why is it the best tool to use? Why is this a good thing to do? And so, and I think that's like half the teacher in me is like, you're never going to get a kid invested in something if you don't give them the why behind it.
Yeah, for sure.
So then I just started like going crazy. And then like at the same time is when Margot and I really started becoming friends. And she was also super interested. So I just constantly had someone to bounce ideas off of and talk to about it. And so we just kind of took off from there.
We are annoying.
Yeah, it's really
obviously.
bad.
That's fine. Listen, dog training is one of things that I know what to talk about. Like, AKA, like, it's the
Perfect.
only thing I know what to talk about. Like, it's funny. Like, I'll go and hang out with people, and like, we'll be sitting somewhere, right, and we'll be having conversations or whatever, or I should say, everybody else is having conversations, and I kind of just like butt in my 2 cents every now and then, you know, wherever I feel like I could provide any sort of input. And then the second somebody brings up anything related to a dog, that's when I start talking. But I know nothing else. That's it. So I understand. Okay, I have some points I want to talk about with that, but we're going to go
To me.
Margot.
So my training story is a little different. Franklin is a golden retriever, so golden retrievers have a lot of energy.
And they're the most happy-go-lucky, easy dogs you'll ever meet in your life, right?
Yes, so they say.
Bum, bum, bum.
So Frank, I took him to what I like to call a kumbaya trainer.
Kumbaya trainer.
yeah.
Elaborate. What does that mean? Because I've
So
never...
the positive only. There's
Okay.
So the
We should
kumbaya
steal that.
trainer, which
I
is
like that.
I mean, positive reinforcement definitely has its place, but positive only didn't work for him. He knew how to sit, he knew how to do all that stuff, but it was like the actual real life implementation that like he just couldn't do because he's very easily distracted. So he went to that training, I don't know, maybe 4 months, not for 4 months, but at 4 months, and he graduated with that little cap, and it was cute and stuff, cutesy, but he still was a terror in like the puppy way. You know how puppies are.
Sure.
So my brother and sister-in-law took their Bernese Mountain Dog, who is just naturally really chill, to a trainer out in Columbia Station that used e-collars, and they were like, well, you should just take him there. So I took him there, and he really learned like recall. He learned sit and to heel, but it wasn't necessarily, not that it wasn't clicking for him, but he wasn't fully there. So I took him there at like a year, and we kind of lived our lives, and it really did calm him down, but it wasn't quite where I wanted him to be. And then Emma got Huey, and I was like, oh, take him to training. And then she took him to Miracle, and I just saw the difference in Huey immediately, and I was like, I want that for Frank. So he actually got attacked by a dog that broke through a fence and went after him, and he already had some dog reactivity issues on the leash. And that was the next day I called Miracle, and I was like, I need to get my dog in there. And life has been great ever since. He's no longer really reactive on a leash. He doesn't like go after dogs or anything. He is actually working with David at socialization issues that he has with dogs. And you can
Very
talk about that
interesting
more.
socialization related issues. Yeah, we will
Right.
get into that for sure.
But he and Huey are best friends. He has some dog best friends that he likes, but that's pretty much it. So
For sure.
not the golden I thought I was going to get, but
Yeah. But the
he's-
golden you needed.
But the golden I needed. With
How
his
old is he
big
now?
head. He'll be 4 in like.
My God, he looks.
9
We've talked about this
days.
before. He looks so much older. He's got such a mature face. I feel like
It's so funny because you say that, but so many people are like, "Oh, his face is so puppy-like." It's because he has a big block head.
Yeah,
the
it
biggest
is.
head
It's a
ever.
dense head. It's
It
like one of those
is.
ones you just,
Uh-huh.
you
And
know,
he just
it's like what's in there. You
body
know?
Yeah.
slam with his head.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he is like what I would want a golden retriever to look like. I feel like we have
Yeah.
another one we're working with right now, Link, who is significantly younger. I think he's like just turned a year or something like that. But he's got the same build to him, like the really dense head and like kind of a little stockier and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's a cool, tough looking golden retriever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
We've
really
talked about it
tough.
before. I feel like all these golden retrievers out there right now, they're breeding them so small and like wimpy looking. And I don't know if that's just what they want or they're more agile for like sport work or things like that. But
I think it
I'm just not into
depends.
it.
There's like the English, the American. He's the English big blockhead boy, and there's another Scottish maybe.
yeah,
I
that might
made
be
that
it.
up, but
Because
so
I know
they're
like
a little slimmer.
Rottweilers are like that too, where they have, I believe, like German and English lined ones.
Right.
That same deal. Like some are a little slimmer, some are a little bit denser and stuff. I don't frankly know much about that kind of stuff. So.
Only dog training.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. All right, so that's cool. So I think as far as a lot of the, you had talked about how you'd been through a couple different trainers before. Like I have talked before about how I had worked with a couple of trainers before I was like professionally training myself and everything. You kind of just got started with one program, obviously. It's interesting how much we see out there, people that kind of bounce around from place to place and, we'll see certain issues and see what certain training programs emphasize more than others. And it's really interesting when I look at, like, say, the place that you took him for e-collar training, right? They are good trainers, right? Like, they know what they're doing. They know how to teach stuff. Like we had talked about when you first started bringing him, he clearly had a great foundation on him and stuff like that. But I wonder sometimes how much of the success is determined on either, one, the company not knowing how to educate the person properly enough. Like, they may have a very deep, good understanding of the training, but do they have a good enough understanding of coaching the person through the issues, or being very aware of, I know, like, obviously we do all of our lessons at our facility or at parks and stuff like that. But, like, when people tell me about certain issues they're having in the house, I'm able to visualize that pretty well and come up with a plan for it, where I feel like I see some places where it's almost like they don't believe the owner when they say that they're having certain issues at home because the dog is so good at the facility, as opposed to understanding that their things are going to be different, right? They're essentially in a bubble where they're not going to see those issues that the dog's emotionally feeling, like, in the house, right? Versus, because I see this a lot as well, the owner not being quite in a place yet where they understand the magnitude of the issues that they're having and understand how important it is for them to take that active role in solving the problems. Because I think a lot of your guys' success that you've had is you guys are now, like, mentally ready to take in all of the information you need to see the results that you want to see. Right? Like you had said, like, you had seen what's accomplishable through the success that she had with Huey. And listen, a part of that could be because of how motivated and active of a role you guys played in the training process. Like, I would definitely say that's a lot of it. But Huey's also a pretty easy dog, right? So you guys were going to be able to see that success a little bit easier than if he had a lot more serious behavioral issues. So once you saw that, you could understand, wow, I really want that. And you have a clear target of where you need to go. So if you're not seeing that success with your dog, it's like, how do I get there? Right? You got to figure out that next step then with it. So I kind of wonder that sometimes, as we see, people go from trainer to trainer, is how much of both sides of it is it, So I think that's, in the goal to have people go through less training programs and need to spend less money on training. Like, I remember that was one of the first conversations we had, is like, why do people need to see 3 different trainers and spend $5,000 to get their dog to a good place? I think we got to look at both sides. Is the owner ready to take in the training, and do they have a clear enough North Star? And then do the trainers have the proper education to educate the clients?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I was definitely dedicated to keeping his training going, but I knew way less about the why than by the time I came to you, and then actually was really excited about it.
Yeah. I think the why is really important. I think, and that's another point that I had written down when you were talking, is the doing versus understanding. And, like, that could be your role as a teacher, right? So what sort of similarities do you see in, like, teaching children versus, like, your own dog?
So many.
Yeah.
And I think about this all the time, because I think there is such a parallel. But I want to make sure I, like, tread lightly, because I do think, like, in a lot of schools, people will make bad correlations between pets and children.
Sure.
And so what I mean by that is, like, a lot of times you'll see schools that, like, want to give out candy. So, like, oh, you did something good, here's a piece of candy. Like, I'm not joking.
Sure.
So many teachers do that. And it's like, they're not, like, we're not doing, like, that's, like, we're not doing that with kids. Like, we're not giving them a piece of candy every time they, whatever. It's crazy. So
we're
that's
also not doing that with dogs that much. You know what I mean? It's not like,
No.
I mean, there are people out there that do it, but it's not like we're walking around with, like, a pocket full of treats where it's like, anytime the dog doesn't bark at the car, we're like, here you go. Every time the dog doesn't do this, we're like, here you go.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing if it's like, okay, cool. Am I just going to be sitting around like, hey, great job. Hey, great job. Attaboy, attaboy, attaboy,
But that's, like, a controversial thing in teaching. So I
Sure.
just want to throw that out there, that, like, the parallels I'm making, I'm not trying to go like that route. But anyways, one thing I do see a lot is especially the structure aspect of it, and, like, a clear, consistent communication. And I think about it in the sense of, like, Huey knows what I expect from him at all times. If I give him a command, like, he understands that I'm going to follow through with that. I mean it. It's something that I'm saying, and I mean it. And the number one thing that you learn in teaching is that you have to mean what you say. And so if you tell a kid, you can't do X, Y, and Z if you don't finish, your reading assignment, whatever, that has to be true. If it's not true, then everything's out the window. Then they're going to pick and choose when they want to listen to you. And so like the clear communication, the structure, just like having your dog know what to expect at different points, whether that be like having their meal times at the same time or having, trying to think like what other thing, or just like your dog is on some general like routine that it has, you know, it knows when its bathroom breaks are or whatever. It's like the same thing with kids. Like kids thrive in structure. If they're scheduled, they know what to expect throughout the day. Like a child will thrive in that. And so I think a lot of the similarities I see come between those two things of just like clear communication and having structure. I've taught in a lot of schools. Like I started my teaching career with Teach for America, which is like this, do you guys know what that is or no?
Not really. No.
It's this organization. So like I went to school for communication and marketing, college, undergrad. And then this program takes people who aren't necessarily education majors, places them in the most high need regions of the country. And then you teach there for 2 years. And so I went to Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know if we've talked about this or I've heard of it elsewhere,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's ringing a bell now.
Yeah. So I did that in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee, I don't know if you don't know that much about it, it's like one of the most segregated cities in the United States, like tons of issues that are happening there. I taught in like a neighborhood that is just having like, I mean, food desert problems, all these issues that people say like these kids cannot, you know, have all these terrible things to say about the kids. And when you just implement some structure and clear communication with them and they know what to expect from you, they know they can trust you, like you can do amazing things. And it's the same way of like you see a dog who is, you know, a person would say is terrible, like super aggressive, all these different things, but you implement some clear structure and you implement some routine and you can do so many things with that dog.
Yeah. Or just like literally like it's a completely different dog, right? So like it's interesting on that point exactly, right? Like just bringing the dogs to our facility, like we see almost 100% of these issues go away or not even pop up in the first place. And like the owners are so shocked from it and they're just like, you know, it's this mentality of there's like this magical bubble around the facility where it's just not the case. It's just like you were saying, the predictability of the dogs day to day. You know, we have dogs that hate men and bark at everybody that passes by and are reactive disasters or whatever it is. And they're just like, they just seem so much calmer from that. And it's like, I understand, you know, whether it's in a school setting, because like, you know, and this is another conversation, obviously, that'd be interesting to hear your point on, like, those kids that may do well in that school environment, but maybe go home and not have that structure and still have a lot of different types of issues and stuff in those settings. It's figuring out how do we then create some sort of correlation and remove some of the contrast between those two environments, you know? And that is like the forever struggle of it, is we know that when you put these dogs into like a controlled environment, they'll do well, but the world is not necessarily controlled. So how do we make it, or as a leader, how do we create a bubble around that dog where we could at least keep an extent of it controlled? Right? I think that's a really interesting point. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think that is just so true. Like I think about, you know, having my class, when I taught in Milwaukee, I was teaching 7th and 8th grade, the kids switched classes. Like in my room, they knew what to expect for the most part. Not saying it wasn't difficult, but like there was some form of structure. And then I remember like I had this one teacher next to me one year and it's like same group of kids who were traveling over to his class. I mean, like these kids were in doing whatever they wanted. Like they were running the show completely. It's like, and I used to think about that all the time is like, how do I get them just to like be in their, the way they're in their seats during the work in my class, like how do we get that to happen over here? But it's crazy because you can only do, it's hard to control that bubble, you know?
It's relationship based, right? Like when you are not controlling the bubble, like dogs are opportunists, humans are opportunists, right? Like there will always be some sort of like a power vacuum going on, right? Where like if the person that is intended to be the leader in that situation is not assuming that role, the dogs or the kids will assume that role, right? So, and that's the problem. And, you know, this is why so many people are against things like say board and trains and stuff like that, is because they, you know, it is that way, right? Like we are creating the bubble and we are developing that relationship with the dog of why they are doing so well in that environment. Where we try to shift that is by teaching the owner those things, creating that blueprint, right? And the first step is the person needs to be open and accepting of those ways. Like we had talked about, you need to be ready to accept that information and implement that information. But yeah, that's very interesting correlations and points with that for sure.
For sure.
So what sort of So what would you notice between the differences in, say, like the different teachers and the different rooms and stuff versus like what you were doing?
A lot of it comes down to structure. Well, okay, this is what it really is. The secret to teaching, your first year, you're like, I'm going to be best friends with the kids. It's going to be like so great.
Sure.
And then you realize like that is not the way to go
Yeah.
because they just don't have any respect for you. And then you go in, and what you have to realize is that you have to set up clear routines, clear structure, and clear communication, because once you have that established, they know that you mean what you say. They know all these different things. Then you can have fun because you always can bring them back. Because if you tell them to stop and you mean that, then they know that.
Yeah.
So you have to go into it for like what you learn is, go into it firm.
Sure.
Like we call it a no nonsense nurturer.
Yeah.
And you go into it firm, but you're caring and you love them, but then you can start kind of like having fun down the road. But first thing first is structure and communication and relationships.
Building that relationship from the ground up the correct way. That's something we tell our clients all the time, is the reason why the dogs are immediately really good with us is because we build the relationship on structure, rules, discipline, then love and fun and all of the good stuff after that. Right? And it's really interesting, like even as we're going through our training programs with certain dogs, like maybe a dog with like more serious behavioral issues, like I'll start off super firm on them with things. I'll make sure we get the point across. I'll make sure they realize they are not going to get away with the things that they've gotten used to getting away with. From there, my entire demeanor changes with the dog as we progress, right? It's so much looser and funner and engaging and stuff. And even if the dog isn't doing perfectly, as long as I have that attention and that respect from them where they care about the information I'm providing, I don't care if they're doing it perfectly or not. I can then start the fun coaching process, you know?
Right.
And that is such an important balance to find with them, that a lot of people get really up in arms over because, when we first start implementing that structure and control in the dog world, it's so hit or miss what we're going to see. With Huey, we saw he wasn't ready to accept that information. He was a little pancake. He didn't want to move. He didn't want to do anything. And again, he's a relatively easy dog, but he's also a very timid, nervous dog. And because he was used to essentially being coddled in those types of ways.
Who would do that? I don't know what you're talking about.
When we started putting him in a position where you have to work through this, you have to take this guidance, we saw a lot of pushback. And then after we got past that, he was like, okay, cool. I know what to expect, right? This is going to be an easy process. And in Franklin's case, I think it was, I really don't think he gave us that hard of a time with the first session because I think he had already kind of broken through that gap with another trainer before, you know?
He really didn't even have that gap when he first went in. It was just his other issues.
Yeah. So I think it was just a matter of then using it, right? So that I would equate to then the situation like you were saying, you had well-behaved, good, respectful students, but then when they were in a situation where they just weren't getting that leadership that they needed, they were assuming that role and kind of acting out a little bit. And I would say Franklin was kind of that dog.
Yeah.
And he's also kind of a quirky dog, like we said, as far as the socialization and stuff. Where I feel like he just gets like really overwhelmed easily. Yeah. And that's where a lot of his acting out comes from, And I've noticed that correlation between like when I've socialized him in smaller groups versus larger groups, he's much more likely to act out in those larger groups, which is kind of contrary to what we usually see, because a lot of times I'll see the larger the group is, if we have a dog that's having dog-related issues, the better they do because they can't single out one thing or another, Yeah. But the smaller groups, he seemed to thrive in a little bit more and seem a little bit more comfortable. So very interesting. Okay, very cool. So you said with Franklin, a lot of your issues you saw started after he got attacked by a dog kind of running through a fence line, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So his first issue, which was reactivity, and that actually happened after not his first like positive only training. It was right after he finished his second training with the other e-collar trainer that I noticed the reactivity just was all of a sudden, and then it just kept happening. But his aggression or fear-based aggression, I'm not sure. I think that's what it is.
Probably, yeah.
Towards dogs began like right after. So he had been attacked once or twice before. I like Emma, dogs just run up to us.
I like she'll always be like, yeah, this dog just like ran up at me and Franklin. I'm like, this like doesn't happen. Like I've never had this happen. In like the last month, twice now, two dogs have like bolted out at us. I'm like, wow. You're a crazy dog magnet.
I don't know why. But anyway, so we were taking a walk and a dog just like broke through behind a fence on the street that we were walking down, and I pulled Franklin up and tried to put myself in between them, and it got a hold of Franklin's tail, luckily, and didn't hurt him. But I know that definitely freaked him out a little bit. Somebody stopped their car and like threw something at the dog. The owner didn't even like apologize. It was horrible.
Oh, wonderful.
So like literally the next day I called, and then he was always like pretty fine with dogs. He and Huey got along well. He and his dog cousins got along well. So he didn't have any issues meeting dogs before, until he went to Miracle right after that attack and started being aggressive towards the other dogs. Or whatever he's being, scared, all that stuff. So
Big
it was weird.
wimp.
I know he's a weenie.
Wow.
He is.
For sure. It's crazy how quickly things will progress like that when you see a dog that just gets like overwhelmed or scared by something having triggered it, right? A situation with the dog running up on them or whatever, where it seems like an overnight switch in their behavior that you'll start to see. Like we see that with either a bad incident at a dog park, or we see that with a situation off leash where a dog runs up to them while you're out on the walk and attacks them or doesn't attack them or whatever it is, where the second that they realize that they need to defend themselves first away from the scary things, it is like the most self-reinforcing behavior.
Yes.
Right? It feels good to do it. It accomplishes what they want, and it's really, really difficult for them to kind of break through that cycle, where a lot of his case, I think a lot of breaking through it has been putting him in the situation where he has to be around those dogs. He may try some of the acting out stuff, and then immediately after he does it, making sure that we're removing the reinforcement part, which is either putting him away or the other dog's going away, right? So the first handful of times that we started doing it, where I said, okay, cool, we saw him try to go after another dog or whatever, the first thing I wanted to assess was, how intense really was it? Is he actually trying to like murder the other dog, right? Or is it really just an intense response where he's trying to keep that dog away, which is what I think it is, right? And when I'm seeing things like that, my first step is, again, if I remove the reinforcement, how much of that behavior goes away on its own without correcting it? So, if he looks like he's going after another dog and does like, right, and like kind of runs 3 or 4 feet at them or something like that, will he stop on his own? And is he actually trying to bite the other dog? And as he realizes that dog doesn't go away, does that de-intensify that situation, which I saw that it did, right? I think what a lot of people make the mistake of initially is, because it's a big, scary response, and because we don't necessarily know what the dog's trying to do, we try to correct for it, but because it's coming from a fearful place already, you play on this fine line of like, you may kind of inhibit it a little bit, but you're not actually changing the way the dog feels in that moment, right? Which is, again, they learned this behavior through it working, right? So correcting for it isn't changing the fact that it still works. We're just making them want to try it less, So you have to address both sides of it. And I usually try to do it the opposite way of, let's remove the reinforcement first. Then if it persists at that point, then I could try to correct away some of it, and that seemed to really help with him quite a bit in the last couple of times. I actually told you the other day, like he seemed the most active that I had seen him so far. And I'm very excited to start trying some of the stuff off in the muzzle, because that's the other side of the equation when you're working with aggressive dogs, is especially dogs that aren't used to having a muzzle on all the time, you're going to see a totally different change in their behavior. And you have to do it initially for the safety side of things as you're getting a good read of the dog, right?
Right.
But we'll definitely see plenty of dogs that are just 10 times more crotchety having that muzzle on, and you're never going to see them really open up to the point that you need them to until you kind of bridge that gap and start taking it off a little bit.
Yeah, I was trying to do some muzzle conditioning at home, and he just freezes completely. And we've kind of broken through a bit of a barrier, but he still is like, why am I caged like this?
And I think some dogs, it's I don't know, I can't imagine somebody just sticking something over me like that, where it's inhibiting my most natural tool that I have, for better choice of words, right? So I can imagine for a dog that's a very weird thing. And I think, some dogs tolerate it more than others. And, over time they accept it more. Like he doesn't by any means like fight it or anything like that. It's just kind of like, this thing, And we'll even see dogs that come to daycare and stuff, other ones that need to utilize the muzzle at times. It's such a switch where like you put it on initially and they're just like kind of subdued. And then you take it off, it's like a completely different dog. As soon as it comes off, they're like, okay, cool. I got to go do my thing or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right? So it's picking and choosing where you're utilizing it. And that's why, like I said, I'm really interested to see how he does next week as far as that is concerned.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited.
It's been super fun to watch, like Franklin, just because we go on walk, like almost every Saturday we do like kind of an off leash walk, and then throughout the week we do a like around the neighborhood type of walk. And just to see how much progress he's made over the last couple of weeks of like how he is really just like looking at Margot for direction. Like we were in the metro parks walking on one of the trails, and this dog is like yapping, like barking, lunging, pulling. And Franklin is just staring up at Margot, like looking up at Margot, looking forward, looking up at Margot, like really looking for that direction, knowing like he didn't do anything. He didn't even look at the dog. Like, and I was like, wow, a couple weeks ago or like 2 months ago, he would have been frazzled, you know, by that situation. He's just making so much progress.
Let me ask you this. So how much of, so with the reactive behaviors and stuff that you were seeing with him before, how much of that caused you to just not do certain things with him from the standpoint of taking him places?
I mean, I didn't ever take him to any public places.
Yep.
Ever. I was not taking him to bars, which I mean, I haven't gone to any bars recently, but we did go to Platform. He did really well, held his downstay, was just chilling. But we definitely didn't do the off-leash hikes, and I have full confidence in his recall. It was just like, well, we're going to have to get off the trail, and he's going to pull, and it's going to be terrible. We always went on walks, but I would cross, and there would be no chance. Even if like a dog was coming, I would have to find an escape route. Now I feel like I can just like walk past them and he'll be good.
Yeah. I think reactivity is another one of those things where a lot of the best success that I see people hit with it is not necessarily the immediately after training standpoint. I think it's the after training when they start just doing the things that they want to be able to do with the dog. Right? Because like we just talked about with the aggression side of things, I think reactivity is very similar from the standpoint of it's a behavioral issue that is very self-reinforcing, right? He is trying to intimidate the other dogs away so we can correct for it all day long, right? Or we can do really easy short walks where maybe we see 1 or 2 dogs or something like that. But in the back of his mind, he's still going to be on edge around those things and knowing that at any point, if he wanted to, he could try to do that to try to make them go away. And I think as we just put the dog in the scenarios where it's like, you're going to be around the other dogs, and we kind of accept internally, this is something I tell clients all the time with reactive dogs, we accept the fact that it's frankly not as embarrassing as we think it is, right? Because how many times do you go to the park and you see everybody else's dog fucking barking at other dogs?
Yeah.
Literally all the time.
All the time.
It's so funny. I was doing a lesson with a German Shepherd the other day. This is actually a couple weeks ago. Whatever. We're at Edgewater. Again, very loud, very reactive German Shepherd. And this is our first time going to Edgewater. And she's just sitting there. The owner's just like, oh my God, he's making such a scene. Blah, blah, whatever. And it's funny because every dog we passed by that he barked at, the dog was barking back at him.
Right.
Right? And I was looking at her. I was like, everybody else's dog is doing the same thing. Now, that doesn't make it okay. I still want it to go away, but who cares, right? When you go there, like, it's funny. When he would start, like, barking and making a scene and stuff like that, you would look around. Nobody was looking. It's not like everybody was like, oh, my God, look at your dog over there being so poorly behaved.
Yes.
You know?
I literally just had this though because we went to the metro parks and I think I've told you like Huey like screams when he gets like really amped about like he loves to swim. So
You told me the water thing.
Like like he gets near water, he'll start screaming. And like I'm not talking like it's not a bark, it's like a
Screech.
Like, it's the craziest noise. But like I was doing the same thing. I was there like, oh my God, like I get so embarrassed every time I take him to the water because he loves it. But as soon as he as soon as I pick the toy or the stick or whatever to throw it, I mean, just screeching, like the most high-pitched noises. And I'm always like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so embarrassed right now.
It's nothing, though. Like, so I talk about Vinnie all the time, right? Vinnie is such a loud, annoying dog. And he has these conditioned, like, just conditioned in patterns and association of, like, high arousal that he will do the same shit in. And the one that I say all the time is because when I got him, I used to compete in a sport that was done primarily in like large open fields. We would, since I owned him for the first 3 years of me owning him, go to a field every day and we would go into that field and do really high energy, intense training. right? So to this day, if I take him for a walk and we see a field and we even start walking towards that field like we're gonna go to it and go into the center of it, his whole demeanor changes. Like he'll go from being calm, cool, and collected to just like absolute psychopath, right? Bananas. And he keeps it under control. It's not like he's like not healing or not listening to commands or anything, but he'll be healing perfectly with me while just being like, right? Like just like crazy, ridiculous, loud, absurd noises.
Yeah.
Right?
That's literally what he does. He could be screaming. I could be like, Huey, sit. And he'll sit. I could be like,
perfectly.
Huey, down. And he'll be down, but he'll just continue
He
screeching.
will screech like a chupacabra.
Someone was literally like, I thought that, like, was walking down the beach one time. We were at Edgewater, and someone's like, I thought that was a whistle. I'm like, no, it's my dog screaming. Like, he's literally screaming.
Yeah. And this gets back to the conversation about like whether you're a dog trainer or a dog owner or somebody that just has a dog, like dogs are dogs, right? And they're going to do certain things. And like we have this picture in our mind of like perfection, and like I do too. And it's good to strive for that. But you have to understand the individual dog side of things, right? Where it's like, okay, cool. Like, obviously, they're really amped up because they know we're going to go to this thing and we're going to do something extremely fun, and they can't keep it under control for it, right? As long as they stay focused in, though, like who cares, right? It's just not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, very interesting. But so back to the point of the reactivity, what I see post-training is I see a lot of people will hit a point where they just start going out and doing the things, right? And because your whole energy changes of like you stop being so embarrassed with certain things, you start just being like, listen, like I want to do this, so I'm not going to be catering to my dog anymore. I'm just going to go and do those different things. The dog starts seeing your change in things. They start being more attentive, and they get exposed to that thing way more, where they start to see way faster changes in the dog's behavior. Right? Same with dogs that are having socialization related issues, ones that maybe aren't really dog aggressive, but the owners just have never really socialized them before and are uncomfortable with it. The second they start setting up those play dates and, doing different socialization related things and seeing how good their dog is, and they start relaxing, and the act of interacting with other dogs becomes so much less novel to the dog, everything starts getting better, right? So that's the point, is creating the structure, creating the routines like you were talking about and everything, and then just going and doing those things, right? And obviously doing it in the safest manner you need to do it, but doing the things you want to be able to do with your dog and then making adjustments from there as you need to. I think that is like the most important part that everybody needs to hit with their dogs with stuff.
Yeah, I think when Frank was, and we've talked about this a little bit, I was a pretty anxious owner. I got him when I was 22.
Margot, worry? I don't know what you're talking about.
I was like a very stressed out owner. I wanted everything to be really great, but in doing that, I kind of think I mean, golden retrievers are Velcro dogs in general, but I kind of limited his ability to explore and do the fun things that we should be doing. And honestly, this year, aside from taking him to training again and like establishing that structure, it's also been like taking him on those hikes and getting him off leash and like exploring all these different places has made a world of a difference for him.
You're providing more for your dog, you know, like when you start doing more things with them. And also all of those things that you just described are very mentally stimulating things, right? Taking your dog off leash to explore and kind of get in touch with nature a little bit more and stuff like that. I think that stuff is so beneficial to dogs as opposed to they live in the box, right? They live in the house. They go into their backyard to go to the bathroom, and maybe if they're lucky, they go around their little suburban neighborhood box, you know? Like, honestly, like, and we've talked about this before, like, I'm not the best with getting my dogs out all the time, but people have to understand that that's not good for dogs to have only that. Right? You're creating such a small little territory where, you know, obviously dogs are territorial creatures, right? You're going to create behavioral issues. They're going to be defensive over those types of things. You're going to see more reactivity, and they're always going to feel emboldened. Like, all of these situations I'm in forever are mine, because they frankly are, right? Because they're only in those types of situations where I think as you get your dog out and about to more different places and they start realizing how much different everything is and that they don't have control over all of these different environments and stuff like that, you could see a big change in their state of mind just from that as well. You know?
Yeah, once I let go of that control and anxiety that I had bubbled up inside of my soul, I feel like he was like, cool, I'm also gonna chill out a little bit. I want to go hang out with Huey.
It's interesting how much our dogs will also change like us, I feel like. Like Vinny's the same way. Like he is a dog that requires immense amounts of patience. I'm a person that naturally has zero patience.
Right.
So over time, like I remember when I first got him and was training him and stuff and realizing like how much different owning a dog like him was versus like Vera, my pity. Oh my God. Like it was so infuriating sometimes when I was training him. I was just like, I don't have the patience for this right now. Like I can't do this, but I had to, right? There was no alternative. And it's really helped me in situations like clients' dogs and stuff of just like maintaining composure, right? Like no matter how much the dog is freaking out or fast and unruly and stuff like that, we're just going to slow it down, you know, for everybody's sake.
Yeah.
Patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue. Josh, you got any points on any of that stuff? You haven't said anything.
I know.
Birthday boy.
Sorry.
Give us your 32-year-old thoughts.
Oh, yes.
The wisdom.
The
wisdom.
mature, yeah. Mature
Yes,
wisdom.
the wisdom. No, I do have a question. So a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about like the difference of clients. You know, there's the clients that, oh, thanks for training my dog. Like it's wonderful. And then there's like you guys, you know, that like, oh, I love dog training. Like now.
That is us.
So yeah, I guess like from a perspective of like a client, like, you know, just getting into it, like what was it that really just like sparked this like fire to just learn every single thing about dog training and like make it a part of your life? I guess that's my question to you guys. You know, like what was it about everything at the end of the day that made you so inspired to ask us all these great questions and literally become kind of like miniature trainers in your own right?
What an honor. Oh my
David's
gosh,
like,
I'm going to
"Don't
cry. Yeah,
No,
David's
no.
like,
Pump 'em
don't
up."
hype him up too much.
Yeah. Don't hype them up too much.
Josh, you could hype up anybody you want to hype up.
All right, thank you.
You do you.
But yeah.
I feel like for me, I am a very like all in type of person. Like I have a very intense personality. Like I become really, really, really passionate about a lot of things. Like, and I will be the person who will like be annoyed, like talk you to death about it to the worst extent. And I feel like, I just got that way about dog training because like I felt like it was an investment that I was making in my dog, and I just saw so much benefit in it. I saw so much reward in it. Like how many, and I still think about this. Like I had Huey the other day. We were at the Metro Parks in North Olmsted, right behind the Rocky River or the Nature Center, and there's geese in the road. Okay, Huey is off leash. And 2 geese on either side of him. He doesn't even do anything. He doesn't go after them, which was like maybe kind of stupid. Sorry, Huey, if the goose attacked you because they're crazy. But like I saw it and I was like, I want to test him. Like I want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And he did it. Like, did I have to like correct him just because I felt like he was like looking at them and perking his ear up? Sure. But did he even like bark at them, go after them, do anything, freak out? No, it's like, who can do that with their dog? Like if you can do that with your dog, like, let's go. But like,
Yeah, Josh, let's go.
yeah.
I can do that with my dog.
But like, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much benefit. I feel like Huey lives the most free, like joyful life because I have full trust in him and he trusts me. We just have a good communication. And I just feel like that's so beneficial. And I just look at so many dogs after going through the training who just have these like pretty like kind of like sad lives in a way. And I don't want to like bash any, dog owners, but like, their dog is just clearly begging them for direction. Their dog is begging them to communicate with them consistently and all these different things. It's like, and I just saw how life-changing it is for the dog, how it is for the owner. And I was like, oh my God, this is literally incredible. Like, I thought you like basically had a wand and you were like, psh, Huey, follow direction.
2 things. One, that isn't it interesting that those outbursts of just absolute horrible behavioral issues are begging for direction?
Yes.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that's like what it is with kids too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that's what it is with dogs, right? When your dog is freaking out at everything that walks by and your dog is jumping all over you and pestering you for things and this and that, that is not that they love you, right?
No.
That is that they are begging you for attention. Hang on a
Right.
second. Okay, we're back.
Rad.
So dogs begging you for attention, freaking out, pawing all over you. Everybody thinks it's that. They love you so much and they just can't get enough of you. And they're just so protective of you. And they just, they just love people so much. They just want to give you kisses. That's not it. They need leadership. They need direction. That's what they want. That's why they're acting up. When you provide it, everything chills out. I heard this analogy one time about comparing like the CEO of a company versus the guy in the mailroom, right? That's just sorting through mail and talking about who do you think has more stress in their life, right? Now, listen, we're talking in this specific job because they may have outside stressors going on in their life. But in that specific job, the CEO obviously has significantly more stress in their life because they have so many additional responsibilities that they need to take care of on a day-to-day basis within that company, where the guy in the mailroom has one direction, right? They have one direction they need to follow. They have one task they need to do, and they don't need to worry about all of the additional heavier things, right? If you stick your dog in that role, as much as we want to humanize and say, my dog is so smart and they're so capable of learning all of these things and they're just such a good boy and stuff like that, they are not anywhere near as smart as humans are, and they are not fit to make all of these different types of decisions. So the more decisions you put on them and the more responsibilities that you put on them, the more stress and problems you're going to create as well, right?
I was thinking like how much going through training has like ruined me as a person, in the sense that like every time I see a dog, I am judging them like 1,000 times in my brain. Okay, because I'm in the thick of it right now, and it's tough.
Yeah.
Like the other day,
That's that new trainer shit. You know?
Okay. Okay, because like these people came, like literally every time a dog walks in platform, people will look at me and be like, Emma, what's your opinion this time? Like they're literally making fun of me at this point. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Like every dog that I see, I'm like, this is what they want. This is what they need. This is what they need to do. And I'm like,
you need.
oh my God.
Begging for this.
Yeah. Like, how dare you let your dog do that? Why would you do that? Terrible idea.
People still ask me that all the time. Like, oh my God, do you see stuff like this and just get so annoyed and so frustrated? And I'm just like, not really.
Yeah.
Like at this point, you do you.
Yeah.
You know? I think the reason why we judge it so much and we're so aware of it as like a new trainer, somebody that's getting really involved in the industry, is because there's so much to learn through observing what other people are doing. Right? You could start to realize all of the patterns between how they're interacting with their dogs, how their dogs are interacting with them, the issues that they're seeing, and you can make all of these different correlations that will help you in the long run as a trainer, right? The key is not to get too
I know.
judgmental and asshole-ish about it, because I've fallen down that trap before.
Oh, yeah. Well,
You
like
know?
literally Jack will sit us down. Like if Margot and I are about to be in a scenario where we know somebody has a dog that needs to be trained, he'll look both of us in the eyes and be like, you
Stop.
guys, don't do it. Don't go too hard. Don't be annoying. Don't be dicks. Don't bother them.
I don't feel like we're dicks. I do feel like we're annoying as hell. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
H-E double hockey's thing. We are annoying. But we've been trying not to.
We've been working really hard to not be annoying.
Here's what we recommend if you're looking, but also if you're not, that's on you.
You're doing a great job.
If you have questions, here's where I'm going to guide you to.
Yeah.
Follow the
That's one of the biggest things I learned was unsolicited advice. People don't like that very much.
No.
Yeah. People always are like, oh, do you want to just go up and give that person a business card? I was like, no.
I think I asked you that.
Did you?
During training.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you're like, no.
I think everybody asked me that during training. I feel like that's like one of the most like cock-headed moves that you could do. Can you imagine if somebody just came up to you and was like, hey, you need fucking help?
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought many times, like at platform, I see people struggling with their dogs. Like, I wish I had. I usually just walk up to them, and I say this only because I tell them, like, you know, I have a dog. Like, hey, like I see, or if I see a puppy, I'm like, you know, it's all good right now. They're 4 months old. They're cute. They're fluffy. They can't run away from you. I was like, when they get a little bit older and they start driving you insane, like I highly recommend this place. Follow them on Instagram. I always tell them that. And the people always say to me, like, oh, it's okay. I think we're doing okay right now.
Yeah. It's like, actually, fuck off.
My best friend got a new puppy, and she's coming to Miracle. But when I was like, I really think you're going to want to take him. And she was like, we're going to train him ourselves. Hey, Jess, if you're listening, I love you. And then they just got to the point, which was really quick. I was really impressed because she would ask questions, and I'd be like, I can't really give you the answer because I don't actually know. They got to a point where they were like, okay, we want to train him. So, and that was quick, but I definitely could feel myself being annoying.
That's the fun part, though, is like when people do start asking for that advice and they start caring. But here's the thing. I get that through just telling my story, right? Like, here's the thing. If somebody wants to talk about dogs that has dogs, or if somebody has a dog and they're talking about their dog, I can provide to that conversation context as far as what I've experienced, like with my personal dogs. And I think that alone, mixed with them just seeing my relationship that I'm able to have with my dogs, will spark them to seek that help, you know? And then listen, once they seek that help, boom, open book, right? I'm gonna, you better be ready. I'm gonna toss it on you, you know?
It is crazy. Like, some people just need to see a dog and what they're capable of. Because, like, I had a couple friends visit this winter. We went on a hike, took Huey out, let him do his, like, off-leash thing. And then a couple weeks ago, my friend who lives in Cincinnati texted me and was like, where do you take Huey? Because I'm taking, like, just seeing it. She's like, I've never seen a more well-behaved dog in my life. And it's, like, not that Huey's amazing. He just, like, has rules to follow. And it's crazy. Like, it just took her literally just watching him for 2 hours to realize, like, okay, that's what I want for my dog.
And you realize that's the best marketing, right? Is having people out there that are just doing the things that you preach, right? So that people can see it. Because that's half of the battle, like we talked about at the beginning, is people don't have that North Star as far as realizing what's obtainable. And I think that this is where I think a lot of dog trainers will make fault, is they'll have these like German Shepherds or Malinois or whatever as like demo dogs, you know, and they'll just be like, look at all of these crazy things I could do that actually are completely unobtainable with your dog, right? Like that dog is genetically wired to do those types of things and your dog will never do it, right? But if people see regular dogs out there doing these types of things, that's completely different. Right? Because they're like, oh, this dog looks like my dog. I bet you, you know, he's capable of doing that. And this person's not a dog trainer. This is just some owner that went through a training program and they have experiences as far as what it was like before and after and et cetera, et cetera. And that's what will get people motivated to do those things.
I mean, I've never been on a walk with Huey where he's not been complimented by someone before. And I love when we go on our hikes and we like have the boys, you know, like in their little downstairs or whatever. People always walk by with their like dog that's yanking at us and they're like, oh, see, buddy, why don't you act like that? I'm like,
isn't it funny?
Buddy can act like that.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Or they'll be like, can you train my dog? I'm like, no.
Yeah, but I can tell you who can.
One day.
Hell yeah. Okay. So now that we got our 1 hour long introduction over, so did you guys come prepared with topics, questions, things like that?
Oh, let me pull up the list.
Did we ever?
Let's get into some stuff.
We had a meeting last night where we prepared.
Nice.
So I have a whole list. I don't know if do you want to start with that one?
Wait, which one?
The fourth one.
What was it back in our band days when you'd have Facebook groups, the street teams? Was that what
Street teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These two are your street team,
the-
the Miracle Street Team.
Demolisher Street
Yeah,
Team.
the Envoy.
Yeah. That was like a MySpace thing, I think.
Yeah.
You know, like
MySpace
MySpace, you get like 3 or 4 people that are out there just repping.
Yeah,
you
this
know?
is the Miracle Street Team right over
Oh,
here.
for sure.
There you go. I'm ready for it.
Always.
I'm here for it.
Okay, so this is our first one. What do you think about double E collars for dogs who have super high tolerances? Do you do that?
This is, well, I heard a little echo there. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. Where did you guys see double E collars at?
On Instagram?
From another trainer.
What trainer? I'm curious. Is that anybody I would know?
Yes.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Throw it
Okay,
down.
no, I don't. I mean,
It's
she
not a
posts
bad
about
thing.
why she does it. Yeah, it was from Ohio City Canine. She
Oh,
uses
okay.
double E collars.
Yeah.
So we're
That's
just
her
wondering.
name.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So the double E collar thing is marketed as 2 different things, at least from what I've seen. Right. So in the sport dog world, that's kind of where the double E collar I feel like first got popular, and it's kind of advertised as dogs that have contact issues, right? Dogs that have a hard time consistently feeling it, et cetera, right? In actuality, it's not that. It's just because it's higher powered, obviously, right? So my opinions on, listen, contact issues, back in the day, I'm sure that was a good solution for it. Nowadays, they have all sorts of different contact points and stuff that you can put on your dog's e-collar, and it's just not, it's not going to be an issue, right? So that's no longer a problem, right? As far as the higher powered conversation, right? Like I need an e-collar that's going to be stronger and more intense or whatever it may be, right? The way I look at that is if you're at a point where the e-collar truly is just like, God, I need more, I need more, I need more, there's deeper problems than just I need a stronger correction, right? And then this can kind of divert in two ways as well, right? So if you're training in a very particular way, right, and you're taking your time through the steps and you're working the dog incrementally through different distractions and stuff, you're still going to need motivating corrections, but I don't think that you're going to need quite as much pressure as you think you're going to for certain types of things. Now, listen, there's resistant dogs that need stronger corrections and stuff like that, and that's fine. But when you start getting into the point where it's like, we're going to use 2 fucking e-collars, we're going to use, the strongest one possible, et cetera, I think at that point, the e-collar correction is just not going to be effective enough in general, right? So we have 2 different types of corrections we could provide dogs, right? So we have the more physical corrections, right? And those would be, your prong collars, your e-collars, anything that's creating discomfort in order to deter a behavior, right? Then you have your psychological corrections, I'll kind of refer to them as, right? Those are the things that are not physically hurting the dog, right? Or causing like discomfort or pain or anything like that. They're things that are essentially just scaring the dog out of what they're doing, right? I think some dogs are either very physically dominant or very, very mentally dominant. And I think the dogs that are mentally dominant, that are kind of like hyper fixating on things and they're really strong-willed and stuff like that, I think those psychological corrections aren't going to work very effectively. And when I say a psychological correction, things like a pet corrector, things like a bonker, honestly, in some of these cases, like startling motions or intimidation and stuff like that, right? They're not going to be as effective because they're stronger than that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't get scared easily by things, but a lot of those dogs are very touch sensitive, right? So you can give a correction on an e-collar and, they're going to be like, ooh, I don't like that feeling, right? Because they're kind of overthinking it and stuff. I think the dogs that are very physically dominant, right? Those are the ones that you could hit them over the head with a 2x4 and they're not going to give a shit. You know what I mean? They're the kind of dogs where it's like, they're just so strong-willed that they could fight through any sort of pain. But most of those dogs are very mentally sensitive, right? So those types of corrections are going to be significantly more effective with them. So as opposed to always looking, I think the problem with going back to the double box e-collar or more intense corrections on the e-collar, I think when you start getting into stuff like that, you start getting into the mentality that the e-collar is the tool. That is the only tool that is ever going to work to give a consequence to your dog, as opposed to opening your mind to like other things may work more effectively, right? I don't think it's wrong. Like I use the Boss e-collar on my dogs, which is the higher powered version of the Mini Educator, but my dogs work fine on a Mini Educator as well, right? So, when you start getting into dogs that are so physically insensitive that you need higher and higher and higher corrections, I think you need to start changing your training approach a little bit more at that point. Mm-hmm. I think that you're kind of limiting yourself as like, I'm just an e-collar trainer at that point,
I think that was like kind of interesting because I think you touched on that a little bit, and I don't remember her name, but she was from Sit in Akron.
Michelle, yeah.
Yeah, you guys talked about how like they just start day one with the e-collar, whereas you guys do that a little bit differently,
Listen, there's absolutely nothing wrong with starting day one with the e-collar.
No.
Listen, I am a avid e-collar proponent, obviously, right? Like I still, even if I get dogs that aren't the most sensitive to the e-collar, we're still going to use that tool because I think it's a very, very effective tool and frankly, more effective than 90% of other tools you're going to get. Mm-hmm. But training is deeper than just the e-collar. And that's the biggest thing I think everybody needs to realize, right? If you are dependent on that tool in order to communicate effectively to your dog and communicate consequences to your dog, as opposed to having the relationship with them where it's not just this tool, it's not just this reward, et cetera, you're fighting a losing battle at that point, and you're not going to obtain the success that you really want to obtain.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too. You start getting into dogs that are so insensitive to things. Most people that are going to fall into that trap are the people that are training solely with compulsion, right? Or solely with corrections and pressure and stuff like that. And again, I don't have a problem with that either, right? There are plenty of dogs I train without ever giving a reward to, right? I don't think we use rewards with either of your dogs very much, honestly, right? But if you get dogs that are so stubborn and resistant and you're just needing to like hammer them all the time for stuff, if you kind of nicen up your approach a little bit and you create some motivation and you get your dog enjoying the process a little bit, 2 things. You're not going to need to correct as much. And the corrections you give are going to be way, way, way more motivating because of the fact that you're teaching the expectation and you're creating a relationship where the dog should enjoy doing that process. And then they're still understanding those consequences for blowing off the things they've been rewarding numerous times for doing already.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah. Speaking of like not just only using the e-collar as the end all be all, the golden mal, which I think I've talked to you a little bit about, she mentioned how she can do everything that she does with her dog without the e-collar. It's like basically like a second skin for them. It's like, I can do this without, but this is I can't have him not on it because it's basically who he is at this point, even if I'm not using it.
sure.
Like, remember that post that she made?
Yeah, she makes a lot of really
Well thought out
Yeah.
posts.
She does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
I
and
like
listen,
her.
again, like I use e-collars all the time with my dogs, but a part of our communication process, or a part of the way that I train my dogs, for example, is creating as many layers to communication as possible. I think I hear that lawnmower going now. I think that's who was ringing my doorbell.
The doorbell.
Goddamn doorbell. But creating as many layers to communication as possible, right? So can I do things like I could take Vinnie out with just an e-collar and get him to do all of his commands. I could take Vinnie out with just some treats and get him to do all of his commands. I could take Vinnie out with just a leash and a prong collar and get him to do all of his commands. I could take him out with just a toy and get him to do all of his commands, right? So I know he will work for all sorts of different reasons. So then I can pick and choose which of those things I want to utilize in different situations to leverage as much attention as possible, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many of these trainers that are caught up on the e-collar, if that tool doesn't work, it's like, what now, right? Vinnie is 9,000 times more motivated by a ball on a chuck it than he is by the e-collar, right? I think if push came to shove and I had a ball on a chuck it and you had his e-collar in his remote and both of us said come and you nailed him for not coming, but I just had that ball, I think he would come to me, or vice versa. Right?
Yeah.
Because I have that relationship with him. He would probably still come to me in that situation, but he's more motivated by that kind of stuff, right? Which
Yeah.
means that I could leverage that attention in different situations around, say, squirrels or deer or this or that, and it's going to be 10 times more effective because not only is he super motivated by that ball, but he also knows that there's consequences for not doing those commands, right? So you're leveraging all of the quadrants in order to get that attention, and that's what dog training is all about, right? Or at least having an effective program is all about, I think. So that's my problem with all of the people that are solely dependent on that kind of stuff. And not saying anything against Julia, right? Like I'm sure she's doing good work and stuff. But
I just had never seen that before. That was
know,
the
it's
first
like-
time.
it's common. Like
Is
I said,
it?
it was common in the dog sport world. Like I said, as a contact issue. It's become increasingly more common in the pet dog world with people that are dependent on e-collars, I think.
So then both of them were controlled by the same remote, and then
you
they
can sync them up to the same button.
okay, and so it just does the same thing on. Oh, okay.
Same exact thing. Yeah. You know what else was interesting? And this is a competitive dog training thing. And this is nowhere near as common as the double box e-collar is. But utilizing e-collars in different places on the dog. So not just on their neck. So there are people that will utilize belly e-collars. There are people that will utilize e-collars at the base of the tail. And it sounds harsher than it is because those ones aren't with the intention of creating a higher consequence or anything. Those are utilized as, they kind of refer to it as like a gas and a brake, right? So base of the tail in the competitive dog world, the guy in particular that uses it, his name's Bart Ballone. He's a phenomenal, unbelievable sport dog trainer. He's from like Belgium or something. So he teaches that stimulation as like, so look at your dog's tail going up and like, that creates all this confidence, right? So stimulating that area, he says, now again, I've never done this myself. I've never experimented with it before or anything. He says that utilizing that technique elicits a similar response of confidence and drive, right? If paired appropriately, right? So like teaching that stimulation, meaning something good happening at the end of it and providing that stimulation in that exact spot, right?
Interesting.
So there's a lot of really, really interesting uses of the e-collar with certain people out there. Like I said, that one is not widely used by any means, but there are definitely people out there that are doing that. Same with the belly one. The belly one, I'm not exactly sure. I think that's more of like a directional thing, you know, like they'll utilize it on like different sides kind of to teach the dog to kind of move in different ways.
Wow.
But yeah, there's also the e-collar is a very, very interesting tool because there's so many different schools of thought as far as how it's utilized and what it's utilized for, right? Like I said, I'm all for consequences. I just think that, you know, as far as the more pressure conversation, I'm just not that big of a believer in that. So,
Fair enough.
all right.
Thank you for
A long
your
first one. Look at that.
answer. I don't know how to work your phone.
Okay. We're looking at our list.
Okay.
That's on you.
Okay. So one thing I had really never even heard of, like, I'm sure that this happens, but I just hadn't heard of it a lot, is like people using like anxiety medication with their dogs. So like, what are your thoughts on that?
It is a very, very lucrative industry. It makes vets a lot of money.
So do you think that, have you ever had a dog that you trained that then had to go on anxiety medications?
There is one dog that the owner chose to keep the dog on anxiety medications because that dog truly had a neurological disorder.
Okay.
Chewy.
Oh,
I mean, like Chewy is like to this day. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos of him or not. He was this boxer I worked with like years ago from Columbus. That was to this day the most aggressive, anxious disaster of a dog that I had ever met. Right, and like his owner is literally amazing for having been able to successfully manage that dog for the remainder of his life until I think he died last year. He had like I think he had cancer or something. But yeah, so they chose to put him back on. He was on a stupid amount of medication when I first met him, like more than like what most humans should take of like because most of the medications are similar to what people are taking. And again, I'm not a medical expert. I don't know that much about the individual medications, but I remember her telling me distinctly it was a ridiculous amount of medication. And he wound up going on a very, very minor dose of it afterwards just to take a little extra edge off, right? So I think, here's the thing. Not that I'm anti-medication by any means, right? If it works, but almost every single situation I see dogs getting prescribed medication for, they're not medical issues. They're training issues, right? Oh my God, my dog is too energetic and jumps too much. Anxiety medication, right? Oh my God, my dog is reactive on a leash, anxiety medication, right? Like, you know, these things aren't medical issues. So why are we prescribing medication to all of them? And then you start getting into these vet behaviorists out there that charge $600 for a half-hour consult. I need to get in that industry first off. $600 for a half-hour consultation where they never even touch the dog. All they do is they literally look at the dog in the room. They say, I'm going to prescribe him with fear, dominance, submissive aggression, right? You know, like they have all these ridiculous different terms they come up with. They prescribe that is the diagnosis, right? And then they say, try this medication, this medication, this medication, and then come back in for another consult in 3 weeks, and then we'll try some different ones if those don't work. Right. And I've literally never heard of success with it. Right. I've seen some people say, you know, my dog was obviously more calm after I put him on it because they were doped out of their mind. But I've also heard the same people where they had to up the dose to the point where they literally turn their dog into a zombie. And it's like, I would rather my dog acting out than be like this.
Yeah.
You know? And then, like I said, these medicines are just so expensive and there's such high margins in them. Right. And I think that's why so many vets are so anti what we do, is because what we do is working. And by saying that these things are medical issues and prescribing medication, they're just getting ridiculously rich off of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just absolutely insane. Here's the thing. Like I said, if we have tried training and we've actually done a really good job with it and we're still having certain issues and you want to take a little extra edge off or something like that, like, I'm not going to fault you for it.
Yeah.
But until you've trained your dog and you've rooted out all of the dumb shit that you are doing, it's such a fucking cop-out, you know? And it's not going to solve your problems.
I mean, I just feel like a lot of times, like when a dog is like generally anxious, like it's just kind of what we were saying before, like they're just looking for some direction. And I think like before you can learn how to actually give your dog that direction, it's like that's why your dog is so anxious, because they don't know what you want. Like they're just begging you for some, for you to tell them what they should be doing, and they just have no idea what you're saying to them.
So this isn't technically a medication, but I remember I took Franklin into the old trainer that we went for like just some with Huey and one of our other friends' dogs, just because he kind of had a moment of fear when he first met Huey. They were great, and then another dog came into play, and then he kind of had a moment. And my trainer and then another trainer were like, "Oh, you should give him some CBD to calm him down." And I was like, "Okay, I mean, you're the trainer, And then now that I've taken him to you, I'm perfectly confident that he didn't need that at all."
Yeah, CBD is one of those ones where, again, like I have less of a problem with if you want to give it to your dog, go for it. I don't understand the point. Frankly.
It didn't do anything at all for Frank. He was like, whatever. Like,
let me give you a good example, right? So Vinnie, the first time I ever flew on an airplane with him, I had no idea how he was going to do, right? So I gave him a trazodone before we flew, right? A one-time, trazodone you use as needed, obviously, and it just kind of helps suppress the dog a little bit, right? Took it on the way out there. He wound up being fine. He was definitely a little bit calmer and stuff like that. Did not give it to him on the way back, and he was fine as well, right? I don't have a problem with single-use things like that for dogs that you're putting them in situations that are a little bit out of their control, right? In that case of flying, it was out of my control. If he started freaking out on the airplane, there was nothing that I could do about it. We're fucking in the air, Going to the vet, especially with things going on right now where you can't even go in with them to help coach them through things. If your dog is that bad at the vet, you want to give them a trazodone before you go there, go for it, right? I don't have any sort of problem with that. It's the long-term medications that I have issues with,
Yeah.
Because they're training related issues, right? Any number of behavioral issue that you could like you could bring any of these people that are putting their dogs on medication. I'd be like, okay, cool. Why is the dog on medication? And they'll explain to me why the dog is on the medication, and I'll watch the way they're interacting with the dog, and I'll be like, oh, cool. Well, if you change this, and this, that behavioral issue will literally disappear. It'll go away. So why do you need the medication now? Right? You just have to train the dog, right? You have to communicate better with the dog. People don't understand their dogs, and again, they're looking for easy way outs with this stuff. So that's my opinion on that.
Damn. Okay, I had one more that I remember. So on Instagram, I always see this one in like dog trainer, and it's Say It Once. I don't know. He has like long hair. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, he posted this video, and it was
he's a big TikToker right now. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. Yeah, he is. And he posted this video, and he was like, your dog should never accept food from somebody else. And he literally in the video has someone walk up to his dog, shove a piece of pizza in the dog's face, and the dog is not even looking at it. I'm like, first of all, this dog is clearly not a dog. It's a person in a suit who is ignoring a piece of pizza in their face.
So
would never.
As far as should they accept food from somebody else, I guarantee you, if you tried to give one of my dogs a piece of pizza, they would take it. Here's the thing. If I'm there and you go to offer it to them and they go to take it and I tell them, no, they're not going to take it.
Yeah.
But if I weren't there and you just went and handed it to them, they're going to take it, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? Now, one of the things we used to teach in the competition world, one of the exercises was the food refusal, right? So what we would essentially do is we'd put the dog into a down, we would go out of sight, and then somebody would come up to the dog and try to offer them whatever. A hot dog, pizza. In one case, I remember it was like a Rally's sandwich or something like that. And you had to teach your dog to ignore that, right? So, you could. It's a very easy thing to teach if you wanted to, and you have one of two ways you could teach it. In the sport dog world, 90% of the stuff is taught with like reinforcement, rewards, positive reinforcement stuff, and then finished off with corrections later. So we would teach it initially as refusing that item for something of higher value, right? So we would have a bite wedge or something behind our back. We would put the dog in a down. Somebody would come up at whatever their threshold is where they wouldn't take it and offer the food, and then we would immediately reward the dog for not taking that food. And we would just do that over and over and getting it closer and closer and closer until the dog was refusing it. And then once we had done that successfully X amount of times, we would start correcting the dog if they went for the food, right? So it's very simple to teach. I don't know if it's really a real life thing that is that necessary. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like if my dog is in a heel position and we're walking by somebody and somebody offers them food, yeah, they should not take it because that would be them leaving the heel position to go take that food, and I would correct them for it. No different than if we're walking down the street and they see a piece of pizza on the ground, they're not allowed to pick it up, right? So I think you're kind of inadvertently teaching that, right? And if you want to take it one step further and proof it like that, you're definitely not going to hurt anything by doing it.
Huey would never. One time we were out at Plank last summer, and this little girl just tossing tater
what?
tots. Plank Road Tavern,
I don't know what
Lakewood.
that is.
Lakewood.
Oh, it's just a little divey place.
Cool.
But this girl just tossing tater tots at Huey. I'm like, why is he getting up? Like, I'm literally so confused. He usually doesn't
Just
break
eating
his
tater
down
tots.
today. Yeah, and then I look over, I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
dang. Like, can you not their tater tots at my dog? Like, I
That's
feel
pretty funny,
mean
actually.
telling him not to eat it. Like, you're literally throwing them at him.
Well, listen, I mean, those are all distractions we'll teach. I mean, you've seen videos of me working with dogs in downstays where I take a handful of food and just toss it on the ground right next to them, right? And I expect them not to take it if they're in command, you know? So, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's, you could teach that if you want to.
I think it's
Hell yeah.
interesting because I remember when we were talking to you like a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how trainers will post these videos, but then they leave out like a lot of context.
Sure.
And so I feel like that's one of those cases. I was like, oh my gosh, like what a dog. But then when you say it, like, okay, would you, if someone was handing your dog a piece of pizza, like I would definitely tell my dog no.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, listen, like, I don't want, I would tell the person first to fuck off,
Yeah.
right? But, like, yeah, I'm going to tell my dog not to take it for sure.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say was I feel like you're usually going to stop someone way before your dog would have even a chance to react. Like, yo, get
away from my dog.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
don't come over here with that pizza.
Well, that's a great point because here's the thing. A lot of these types of things that we would be teaching our dog like that are under the assumption that like we're not going to be stopping that first, which I don't even let people come up and pet my dog. So why would I let somebody get close enough to give them a piece of pizza?
Yeah.
Now, listen, if they're throwing tater tots, that's a different story.
Yeah.
You know, like I probably would be a little caught off guard with that too. And Vinnie would probably go for those fucking tater tots as well.
Huey went
yeah.
for him. He was up. He was up.
Thank you.
Yeah. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll take that. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, the second I noticed it, I would be telling my dog not to take those things. You know, and I have confidence that most random things they would see on the ground, they're not going to eat. You know,
Yeah.
so but it's situational. You know, you're going to teach it somewhere, and the dog's going to be good with it somewhere. But I don't know how generalizable that is. You know, I think there are some dogs, and this is an interesting conversation. I think there's some dogs that are just really good with minding their own business with that kind of stuff, and some dogs that are not, right? We see some dogs that are just absolute food psychopaths or just really curious or whatever it is where they're opportunists, right? If you have a plate of food sitting down and you're not around for long enough, they're probably going to get into it, right? And then you have some dogs that just don't care about that kind of stuff, you know? And I think the ones that are really curious, you could teach to be dramatically better with that stuff, and they're going to get to a point where they ignore it most of the time, but as opportunists, eventually I think they're going to go for it still, you know?
I mean, Huey would definitely, like, if I leave food out, like, if I had, like, left something on the coffee table, he would definitely go for it if I didn't do anything. But we're kind of at the point where, like, when Jack and I go to sit down for dinner, he walks to his bed.
Yep.
Because he knows.
You pattern in what's appropriate.
Yeah, like, we don't even tell him at this point. He literally just puts his head down. He's upset, and he walks to his bed. He's like, oh, dang.
I am a notorious like coffee table eater, and that was something that I used to have big issues with my dogs. Is they would just be in my space all the time while I was eating. And I remember one time I was like, enough is enough. You know, I started every time I would make my food, I would sit in on the coffee table, and I would literally walk out of the room and just peek around the corner, waiting for one of them to stick their nose in it. And same deal, just nail them for it. And again, that helped to pattern in not doing that as much. But again, eventually they're going to do it still if they have enough opportunities to do it, you know? Where there's dogs out there I've met that literally you can leave the house and have a pizza on your coffee table and they're not going to touch it. You know, and it's not that they're not food motivated. They just know that's just not something they've ever done or got away with, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Not
kind of
Frank.
ingrained in them, you know?
Not Frank.
Yeah.
We used to catch Huey, like, when we first started training and, like, we were starting to work through things. Like, he got into this horrible habit. He would jump on the counter.
Oh, yeah.
And he would jump on the counter. Like, one time at this point we had roommates and they had like left a chicken breast out to thaw. And then one day we were like, he was like, where, like, I know I put this out, the plates are like, where's the chicken breast? And we were like, we don't know. Like, we didn't touch it. Like, no way the dogs got to it. It's impossible.
Huey did.
Yeah. A few weeks later, you just hear it. I was like, what is that noise? I look around the corner. Huey's standing on the counter. I was like,
my
is this a sick joke?
That's insane. Especially when they're up there like a cat. Like I remember when I first got Vera.
Like that's disgusting too.
She did that as well. Like she would just jump all 4 paws straight up onto it.
Yeah, that's what Huey does. He's just like a little spring.
Yeah, but I don't put that shit past my dogs, honestly. Like I remember the day after Christmas this year, we smoked a prime rib. Mm-hmm. And, I think like my dad and I were outside getting the smoker ready and stuff. And we had it inside just sitting on the kitchen table. And I remember walking in and I looked at the prime rib up there and I looked at my dogs like in the kitchen on the ground. And I was just like, no. Mm-hmm. We're not playing this game right now. I took it, like put it away. I was like, we're not doing this right now. Because fuck no. If they were in there for long enough, at some point, one of them is going to jump up and try to get that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember you were like, bait Huey. I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. Put something up on the counter. Just waited for him to jump up. Bam. Never has jumped up on the counter again.
I mean, you could really inhibit some of those behaviors, by doing things like that. But again, like that drive is always going to be in them to some extent.
Yeah.
So
I feel like, and I don't want to sound like a weenie, but one of the hardest. Sorry.
I love how you keep saying that.
Did I say that before?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or one of you did. No,
did.
you did.
Was
You called Franklin a weenie.
He's weenie.
Oh yeah. Okay. Didn't want to be known as the person who repeatedly says weenie, but noted. Don't say it again. You've met your threshold. But one of the hardest things for me, like with the whole training thing, has just been like communicating with other people, in the sense that like when I bring my dog out, I don't want you to walk your dog up to mine, but I'm super non-confrontational, and I know that Huey's
Polite
not
but firm.
Yeah, and I know Huey's not going to do anything, so I'm just like, so I have made some goals for myself, but in the
You have goals for yourself.
yes.
What are these goals?
Okay, so for a long time, I'm going to be honest. If people just walked their dog up to Huey before I could have a chance to say anything, I just let it happen. I know, I'm sorry, but I didn't like it, but I didn't say anything because I literally get filled with anxiety when it happens, and then,
It is awkward initially, especially when you realize like how pissed off people get when you tell them not to.
Yeah.
so upset.
Yeah.
So at first I would say nothing, and then I started making a goal like, okay, I'm going to say something, but I was telling you this the other day, like I find myself telling them and then going into a full explanation and like trying to coddle to their feelings of why their dog can't come up to my dog. So,
Try to make it better.
Yeah. So then my new goal, I was just telling Jack this the other day, like I'm not going to explain to people why you cannot walk your dog up to my dog. I'm just saying no. Like when you, if like don't, I mean, unfortunately most people don't ask at this point. They just lead them up to you. But yeah, I mean, that's been the hardest part for me is like, no, you cannot just reach down and pet my dog because you're walking past. No, you cannot walk your dog up to my dog. Like that has been the biggest struggle for me.
Even this weekend, we went on a hike, and
Oh my God. Yeah.
this is where
about
stuff
to
always
call her out?
happens to
Yeah. I'm
me.
about to get called out hard.
It's not even her fault. So we were walking the dogs, and they were off leash, and then I always put Franklin on a leash when we see another dog, and pull him off to the side and the dog was off leash. And these people are
The
walking.
third dog.
Yeah, third dog.
We're off the path.
Yeah, we walk off the path, see that they're not going to put the leash on the dog. So they're like, oh, he's friendly. And I was like, okay, well, he's really particular about dogs. So I'm going to pull him off the path. Very clearly did not want to introduce the dogs. I don't know how much clearer I could have gotten. I like put I put myself in front of Frank. The dog walks up to Huey, and they're in front of us. And I pull Frank back even farther, and I'm like, okay, like something's about to go down, and I'm gonna have to like be on my A game. And then like the dog kind of seems like he's just gonna walk away. The owners just turn their backs to it.
Like when he walked up to Huey, like I didn't say anything, which big regret, but like Jack and I were visibly like removing Huey's body away from the other dog, like pulling on his bandana to yank him away from the other dog. So it was like, which maybe, I don't know, it's a really bad idea. I don't know. But, and so, yeah, so like it was clear like we were uncomfortable with it, even though I didn't say anything. So regrets, but like the other people didn't get the hint. Like,
Well, they just turned their back to the dog that was off leash because he was friendly. And then, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to like prepare myself for this thing that's about to go down. And the dog, I see him coming up. So I'm like, nope. And Franklin gave a little growl. He wasn't like going off, but these people were like, no, about their dog, but the dog clearly wasn't listening, and the dog wasn't being aggressive. It wasn't like his fault, but I was like, take control of your dog and stop putting my dog in a bad, me and my dog in a bad position. And I'm just like,
I think the problem is like anybody that would be doing stuff like that, they're not going to have an aggressive dog, obviously, right? But because they don't have an aggressive dog, they're just so rude and disrespectful towards everybody else's boundaries, you know? And you guys didn't communicate boundaries quickly enough.
I know. I mean, like, when I think about the situation, I have so many regrets in the sense that, like,
I'm full of regret.
I have analyzed it so much, and I felt so bad about it because I was like, I should have, like, no joke, like, probably pushed her dog away from Huey or grabbed her dog's collar and waited for them to come get it, or all these different things, because it's like we said that we like made it clear we didn't want, not very clear, but we could have been more clear, that we didn't want her dog to come up, but like I don't know, it's just like when I look back on it, I'm like, I would feel so rude grabbing her dog's collar, but it's like, how rude are you being that we've communicated to you we don't want them to greet each other and you're just still being willy-nilly?
It's
like,
super rude about it.
I said Franklin was not good with dogs.
yeah
I should have been like, he'll kill you.
yeah, exactly. You should have been like, get away, get out of here, get out of this forest.
I've seen that happen so many times. And honestly, like, I've been in situations before where it's like, you know, you tell the person like no, right? And they still just like don't care, right? And then it's like, it sucks because like then sometimes you have to be the asshole, right? And you have to be the one that either like literally throws a fit and like yells at them like, no, you need to get your dog right now, right?
Yeah.
Or you need to do something intrusive to the dog to make the dog go away, which is going to then create a fight as well. Over the summertime, I literally thought I was going to get punched in the face by this guy. Did I tell you the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember this one.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. So I'm at Edgewater. I'm doing a lesson with this like young Bernedoodle puppy, right? And I see like on the other side over by the pier, I see this guy with this bull mastiff, giant dog, you know, probably weighed like 150, 175 pounds, something like that. And this dog is at any given time like 100 yards away from this guy, like very far away, right? And I watched this dog run up to like 3 individual groups of people. And one of them was a couple guys. The dog ran over and literally started jumping all over them, which you have a 175-pound dog jumping on you that you don't know. Like, oh my God. What? I saw another situation where there was a group of people having a picnic. The dog came and ran all over their picnic, right? Which, are you kidding me? And in my head, like we're like, we can't get away anymore, right? Like we're like in the center of the field, minding our own business. And this dog is just literally wherever the fuck it wants to be, right? Dude's just not even caring, just walking, whatever. So I'm seeing this dog, I'm trying to move away, and suddenly this dog puts its eyes on us and just comes bolting like a rocket at us, right? I had not seen this dog come up to any dogs before. This dog is literally got 150 pounds on this dog that I'm working with. I was like, this can't happen right now. It's my job to protect this dog, especially because it's my client's dog. It's not even my own dog, right? I literally wound up, I kicked this dog in the head as hard as I could. Literally, as hard as I could. He didn't even flinch. Like it was nothing. Like he stopped, but he just kind of stood there. And I start kind of like yelling at the dog to try to get the dog to like back up and go away. Literally, this guy comes flying across the park. Flying, like full speed, yelling at me, like, what the fuck? Why don't you fucking touch my dog? Blah, blah. He literally gets in my face. He's like this far away from my face, yelling at me like, come on, whatever, you know, doing the typical macho game and stuff like that. And then he tells me, I'm going to find you.
Like, here's my answer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool. So are you going to like kill me? Is that what you're going to do over this? But it just like that guy went into that park that he owned that place. And that, you know, all things aside in his irrational behavior and stuff, even if he had not done any of that, that is like the literal most disrespectful thing that you can do. And the thing that pissed me off the most was like Edgewater used to be the most strict place that I feel like about like off leash dogs and stuff. Like I had watched them ticket so many people at that.
I mean, I got yelled at across a field via megaphone at like 8 a.m. I was playing fetch. They were like, "You need to keep your dog on a leash." I was like, "Okay, this is so embarrassing."
And since COVID, like they haven't cared at all there. It seems like, you know, like everybody has off leash dogs there now. Everybody's like I feel like I'm on like a swivel every time I go there anymore. But like, I just don't understand how somebody could think that that's okay, you know? And then, like, watch how disrespectful their dog is being towards other people, even if it's the most friendly dog in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, And then we get punished for it because here's the thing. Like if I come there with a dog that's dog aggressive, but I have that dog under direct control at all times, and we're just trying to walk around and mind our own business. Now what that's saying is I'm not allowed to do that anymore because everybody else's dog takes precedent of like they're so social they can do whatever they want and they can come up to whoever they want. Right? Flip it around. What if that was a little kid and this dog was running full speed at a little kid?
Yeah.
Right? Like that. That would be a serious problem.
It'd be real
issue.
bad.
Right? Like, so why is it okay with anybody else? I just don't get it. It literally baffles me sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that makes it so uncomfortable is like we can't communicate boundaries because we are afraid of the ramifications that are going to come from us communicating boundaries. And that's a big problem.
I mean, like, so remember when we were at Platform like a couple Mondays ago, Huey was like pretty close to another dog, and that
I
dog,
saw it.
yeah, just like kept trying to come at
Yeah, I
Huey,
saw it.
like reach towards him and stuff.
Yeah.
That guy ended up making a comment to one of my coworkers, like, why is she so weird about her dog? Like, why is she so like awkward about it? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, said something. And like, luckily the person had my back and was like, she's in training with her dog and she takes it really seriously. Yeah. But like, why would you even judge it? Like, if I said no, like, you keep letting your dog pull towards my dog. Like, I'm clearly uncomfortable with it. I don't want you to do it. Huey's not going to do anything, but you don't know him. Like,
100%.
I don't know.
I think with Frank being like a fluffy little yellow golden retriever, people are like, oh, he's fine. He's going to be great. And I'm like, not with dogs. Not with dogs. With people.
Yeah, and it's just, but, you know, we already broke down with him. Like, that's probably the reason why he got to the point he was at is because of situations like that, right? That's how reactivity gets started, is our dogs not seeing us handle situations like that, right? So that conflict I had to get in with that dog for the sake of protecting that dog, right? If I didn't do that, that dog would start to learn it has to do that. Because for as scary of a situation as that was for me, I can't even imagine for the dog, right? So you have to, you know, that is our job to do that. You know what's funny is that day at Platform, that was like the proudest dog trainer moment of my life. I was sitting over there and I was watching Huey just like hold his downstay and this dog just like repeatedly try to like run up to him and like not get all the way to him, obviously. But I remember with like the friends that I was like, you see that dog over there? I was like, we trained that dog.
I mean, when you looked at me from like your
kept
table,
looking, I was
you were
like-
like this. I was like, this is the greatest moment of my life. Like, I have made it. Like
I know she came home and she was like, guess what happened?
yeah,
Huey was good.
yeah. And it was funny because I was talking to some people yesterday and we were talking about how they were saying, you know, like, I hate going to these bars that had to have dogs come and stuff. And someone made the comment like, you know, I walk into the bar and these dogs are just walking up to me. They're sniffing all over me. Like, I don't want
Get the
that.
fuck away from me.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I
I'm
don't want
like-
your dog in my space right now.
I'm like, you don't want bad dog. You don't want these like poorly behaved dogs there. Whereas like when Huey goes to a bar, he lays on the floor and that is the end of the story. And that's all he does. He's not walking up to people. He's not walking up to other dogs. Is he licking the floor? Like probably, but he's not doing anything terrible.
Is he
Like,
eating tater tots off the floor?
yeah, maybe. But like, you know, it's not that you don't want dogs at the bar, which like is a whole nother thing, but you just don't want these poorly behaved dogs at the bar.
Yeah. I think that's the problem is it just gets you hit a point where it starts getting really disruptive because people get it in their head because they can come to these places with their dogs that they have to go to these places with their dogs and they can do what they want to do at them. Like I remember, I don't know if it was the day you guys were there or not, or the day in between, but we were at Platform and we're doing trivia and literally this German Shepherd came into the bar and comes flying, like dragging his owner across the entire bar all the way over to who's that guy that has the coonhound that's there all the time? Isn't he like affiliated with Platform somehow?
Yeah. I think he works in the warehouse or in the brewery side.
So he's got that dog with him all the time, obviously. And this dog comes dragging all the way to that dog. And literally for the next like 20 minutes, like we're sitting there trying to do trivia. We need to hear over the speakers and stuff. All I hear is these dogs just barking at each other loud as shit the entire time, you know? And it's just one of those things where it's like, it's so it's kind of disrespectful, but it's so disruptive, right? Over something like that where you sway away from like, this still isn't a dog park. You know what I mean? Like this isn't the appropriate place to be doing all those things. And I don't want to say like, if you can't keep your dog under control, don't take them. But like you should be actively working to be less disruptive as opposed to going into it with that mindset.
My favorite is like when a dog's like barking or like freaking out or whining and pulling towards another dog. oh, can they just meet your dog? Because that'll make them stop.
That'll make them stop.
That'll make them calm down. And I remember one of the first times I said no. I was at Terrestrial out on the patio as a summer. This dog is like whining, crying, barking, pulling towards you. And they're like, can he just meet him? He'll stop. And I said, no.
Nope.
Can't do it. Ha ha ha. Get your dog trained. My dog's not doing that.
Oh, man.
Brad.
I know.
All right. You got more questions in there?
Yeah.
And our little yellow phone.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's like an Easter phone, it looks like.
Yellow's my favorite color, if you wanted to know. Okay. You want to do that or that?
I guess we can do that one.
This one?
Actually,
Or do you want to do this?
oh, actually, I do have a question. This one's actually for one of my friends.
Okay.
I can't answer it.
I'm
So, recently got a puppy. Doesn't resource guard inside, but started resource guarding randomly with sticks outside. What I'm guessing is don't let them have sticks. But how do you prevent and or stop said resource guarding of something that is not theirs?
Do you know how old the dog is?
Maybe
Guesstimate.
like 18 weeks.
Oh, so still like extremely
Still
young.
a puppy.
Yeah. And what, like, is the dog guarding those things towards the owners?
Towards the owner. So it happened just randomly one day where he just like lunged and growled at her once she took the stick out or was trying to take the stick out, just like they went out.
Okay.
And he hadn't done it before.
So here's the thing with puppies, I think, and preventing certain behavioral issues is you have to understand a couple of things, right? When you first get a young puppy, everything you do with them is management, right? Which means that until you are in a position to address certain things, you cannot allow the dog to rehearse them, right? There's a reason why you don't let your puppy just loose in your house when you first get them, is because they're going to piss and shit all over the floor, right? There's a reason why you don't just let your dog off leash in like busy places and stuff like that, is because they're going to run off and you're going to have to play keep away and you're not going to be able to catch them and they're going to run into the street. There's a reason why, any number of things could happen, right? You don't have your dog in the same room as your trash can because they're going to start getting into it, et cetera, right? So because of that, what I'm going to look at is, okay, I'm assuming this dog is not trained first. So why is the dog in a position where it's able to get all of these things without your influence of telling them not to do so, right? Why, because if you're not in a position to communicate effectively and the dog is, say, off leash in a backyard, running around picking up all these different things, if it gets something you don't want them to get, it's going to be such a struggle for you to get it back to them. And there are dogs out there that are just very combative. And even though it might not be like the most intense resource guarding that I've ever seen in my life, they're going to try to guard those resources just in a part of that like arousal and game that you're playing with them, right?
Yeah.
So, let's say they're off leash, he gets a stick. First thing I need to do is I need to chase them down to even get to them to get that thing, right? That's creating a bunch of conflict. That's creating a bunch of competition. Then once I finally get the dog, I have to grab them to restrain them, typically speaking, right? Because they're going to run away if I don't do that. That's putting the dog in a position where fight or flight, right? Then I'm reaching in and I'm grabbing that resource or whatever it is. So that's direct competition at that point, right? So all of those things put together immediately puts the dog in a position where they're going to try to do that. They don't really have another option at that point other than just completely submit to their owner, which, let's be frank, like not all dogs are like that.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we solve that problem? First step is you manage it. So if the dog is in the backyard, it has to be on a leash and it has to be attached to you. If you want to give your dog a little bit more freedom, that's fine. You need to get a longer leash then at that point. So cool. If my dog's on a 20-foot leash hanging out in the backyard and I see them get something they're not supposed to, I immediately eliminate all of that bullshit because I can just pick up that leash and reel that dog in, take that thing from them, and guess what? I win. It's not a big fight, right? Second thing you need to do is you need to understand that I need to be able to communicate with my dog more effectively so I can put them in those types of situations I want to. So you start the training process, right? So you manage things until you start training the dog, and then you incrementally remove some of that management to put the dog in situations so you can communicate right from wrong, right? So I start then having the dog loose in the yard when I'm in a position to correct them for picking up those things in a non-confrontational way, right? Then I start just having them totally loose in that yard and allow them to have those things and then practice teaching them to drop it, et cetera, right? But you have to, with a puppy, manage them until you're in a position to do that. And I see so many people that get puppies that they literally treat an 8-week-old puppy like it's like a 4-year-old dog, right? And they allow the dog to just rehearse all of these things because they're not managing things effectively, and they create all of these issues over the course of like a month, you know?
Right.
So how, and this is another thing we wrote down, like when you're teaching that like distinction between like teaching the no, like what does that actually mean to the dog? When you're not using tools, you know, like an e-collar, you're not using a prong collar, how all these different things, like how do you effectively teach that no?
Well, like we talked about, it's not about e-collar or prong collar. Like, you know, with puppies, I'll use pet correctors a lot. You know, I'll pair the no.
What's a pet corrector?
Can of compressed air.
Oh, okay.
So I tried to do that with Frank when he was a puppy, and he said, fuck no.
And it's one of those things like we talked about with the e-collar, right? Physically or mentally dominant dogs, right? There are some dogs that don't care about things like that. They're not startled easily.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, with those dogs, it's not going to be the most effective thing in the world. But for some puppies, it is, right? For other ones, I'll pair the no in with, you know, I always do with a really young dog with biting, the tooth lip curl, right? So I'll grab their lip, I'll curl it over their tooth, and I'll squeeze down really hard, right?
Oh,
And
that's interesting. I've never heard of
yeah,
that.
so I'll say no, grab it, and they're like, I don't like that, you know? So they start learning that they don't like that thing. Bonkers are very, very, very effective with puppies, right? And you can make little puppy ones, you know, where, you know, you could use a little hand towel that you roll up that the dog is something you don't like. No, throw it at him, right? You could use, there's a trainer out there, actually it was Sean, the good dog. He made a post with, he got a new Corso puppy, and the dog was being really annoying in the crate and like pawing at it and stuff like that. And he posted a video of him in bed, like reading, the puppy in the crate over there, and him with a pile of rolled up socks.
Yes.
Anytime the dog did it, nope, threw it at the crate, right? And he stopped it doing it that. But the point is, first, the consistency and the believability of it, right? You can correct as firm as you want or as light as you want, but unless you're being consistent and following through with sending the message that it's something that I don't like first, you're only going to get so far, you know? So, yeah, you could teach it any number of ways. A leash, you don't even need a prong collar, right? With some dogs, you pick up that leash, you tell them no, and pop. Just give a little pop on it, right? The dog probably doesn't like that, right? So eventually it will start to condition in that that's something that my owner doesn't like, right? So that's most of it, you know? And just not saying no unless you're going to enforce it, you know? But by managing things really effectively, you hit a point where you don't have to say no as much, and you can make sure every no you say counts.
Right.
So that's the key with it, and that's why management is so important. That's why one of the biggest routines I tell people to do that so many people freak out about this is 2 hours in the crate, 2 hours out of the crate with any young dog, right? The less time the dog is out of the crate, the less time for them to get into trouble, you know?
Yeah, I remember that being an issue, like, because, I mean, he was probably only 8-ish months old when COVID first started. And so from his 8-week-old self to then, he was used to, like, workday being in the crate all day, you know, like, from the time school started to ended, he was in his crate. And then COVID happened. Obviously, I didn't want to his crate anymore because I was home all the time. I was like, oh, this is so great. Get all this time with my dog. And then right when we started training, he like could not be in the crate anymore. He would just like bark the whole time. And I remember you were like, you just got to put him in there and you got to make him do it. And I would sit there like at my computer, like trying to do work in the beginning. It was the first time virtual teaching, and he is just like going nuts next to me. And I remember even calling you one time. I'm like, I can't, like, when do I let him out? Because he's not stopping. I don't want to let him out and let him think like the barking works. Like, it's so stressful to let up on that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it can be really challenging, especially when you're home all the time, because you can't escape some of that stuff, but also you can't rush it, right? Some of those things, you got to just fight out for the first week or so of doing it, you know? And then from there, you know, there's other things you could do to chill them out more, but the best way they're going to learn is by removing the reinforcement of the behavior, you know? It's like we talked about with the other behavioral issues earlier. Right. What else? You got more stuff?
Yeah, I got so much stuff. You don't even know. Okay.
Let's do that one.
Okay. First. So I have seen a lot of, and I think it was kind of interesting when you guys, I think you had Bridget, or not Bridget, you had Emily and someone else on, or no, it was on Instagram. They were talking about like how they first moved and like when you're managing those behaviors. And I remember Emily, I think, was saying like you have to really be on it. There's a lot of new noises, like correcting for it. And one thing when we moved, we noticed with Huey is like his barking, like towards the window, became something that we hadn't had previously, an issue with him. And I saw this post that I thought was kind of interesting from another trainer, and she said she was identifying the difference between like alert barking and then like just regular barking. And so she said like alert barking is like spaced out, like low, like kind of like oof,
Yeah, the huffy puffiness.
yeah. Versus like just like a manic like rah, 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 at the door. You know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So
She was rewarding for the alert
Yes,
barking.
she was rewarding for the alert barking.
Versus, I mean, she wasn't rewarding for the crazy barking, but for the alert barking, she rewarded for.
what was her thought with that? Did she say?
She said that the dog is trying to alert her and communicate with her about that something uncertain was happening.
Gotcha. I don't know about that. Listen.
I just thought it was interesting because I was like, because initially, as soon as he was doing it, I'm like, correct. Like, you want to. So then first it would be like one deep bark is what he would do if he heard something. Okay, correct for that. Doesn't do anymore. But still, sometimes he'll do those like low, breathy barks if he like someone walks up on the porch or something. And I'm like,
I don't really mind if Frank does that. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay, let me break this down here to what I think here. Let me see if I could break down this. So I have always seen the alert, if we're going to call it alert barking versus regular barking, I've always seen alert barking lead to regular barking, right? I think the difference is the alert is more of the subconscious response that the dog has. The actual barking is the conscious decision to pursue that, right? So, for example, this is actually a great example. It just happened yesterday, right? So we have a neighbor at our facility that has 2 dogs that they've started bringing those 2 dogs to the center with them, right? And he's been letting those 2 dogs out into the backyard that's next to our backyard, right? There's never outside dogs outside of that fence. So yesterday, the first couple times he let those dogs out, the dogs were like, what the fuck is that? There's a dog out there. Oh my God. Alert barking, regular barking, any of that nonsense, right? I saw every single time that he would let those dogs out, 1 or 2 of those dogs would have that alert response first, where it's like there's something out there, woof, 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 and then it would turn into the right, and the running over trying to pursue at it, right? I personally correct for anything past an initial alert because I think the initial alert is fairly subconscious, right? If you come and knock on my door and my dogs are loose, they're going to let out at least 1 alert bark, right? And I think that's normal. I think that's a natural response that a dog is going to have. But because I always see it turn into something after that initial startle, if it pursues any further than that, I'm going to correct for it because you can't say 1 alert, then a second alert, then a third alert. All 3 of those are subconscious, right? After the first one, they know what they're doing, right? So I'm not going to correct for the first one. I always correct for the preceding ones after that, right? So that's, I don't know. That's my opinion. I can't see why you would want a reward for that. That doesn't make sense to me. Unless the only way I could kind of rationalize why they would do it in my head, which I don't even necessarily agree with still, is that they're trying to change the perception of the dog's response to that trigger. So it's no different than like counter conditioning is a thing in dog training where the dog has a negative response with a thing. We provide something positive every time that negative thing is around to try to change their perception of it. So maybe she's trying to take that alert and say, the dog is having a negative response to something going on outside. So I'm going to give rewards in order to try to shift that dog's perception to people outside are exciting. But at that point, it's like, this goes back to our conversation we had at the very beginning of like, I'm not walking around with treats rewarding my dog for all of these different things. Like I either like what my dog is doing or I don't like what my dog is doing. Right.
I definitely don't think that's what she was rewarding. I think she was
It was for like the post says I saved everything that we're discussing. I saved on my here so I could like go back to it if you want. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, for sure.
But hers definitely said like rewarding the dog for protecting me.
Oh yeah, I don't want that at all. It's not your dog's job to protect you, right? And here's the thing, like you had said, like you don't mind Franklin barks and stuff like that.
He doesn't ever bark after the alert bark, though.
So that's where I don't necessarily. Let's see.
Good girl.
Oh boy.
Good girl.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know about that.
Just look at the dog again because it's cute.
Here's the thing. That dog is not doing that to tell her that somebody is there. That dog is doing that because it's concerned about something going on over there.
It honors Ruby's pack position is what it says.
That's ridiculous. Listen, some people have Tim. When Tim was on, he was talking about a lady that made a post about reactive dogs and how she's always going to reward her dog when her dog starts getting concerned about the outside things to change her perception of the things and all sorts of bullshit like that. People get so weird about overanalyzing that kind of stuff, where here's the thing. Any sort of protective tendencies that your dog has, they are not being protective of you. They're not trying to alert you of something. They are either protecting themselves or, the worst case, they're protecting their resource, which is you. Right? Which that's not my dog's position. If we're trying to reward the dog's pack position, that is the dog saying they're above you in that situation. So why would you want that?
Yeah. When in my first trainer with the positive only, I remember somebody had an issue with the dog going crazy. It was like a little dog barking at things outside, and the trainer was like, just give it a little pet, let him say thank you, let him know that you, and they were like, okay.
I think in some of these cases too, like, again, it's kind of a cop out as well of like, okay, in that case, they didn't have a way to stop that behavior. So as opposed to stopping it, they're flipping it and making it seem like it's a positive, but it's not a positive. Right?
Yeah.
Why do I want why do I want my dog that's still, it's not the full-on freak out barking, but it's still showing concern and intimidation towards something. Why would I want my dog doing that to another person, to a kid, to another dog, et cetera, et cetera? Right? Like it's still not appropriate. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm empathetic to the initial alert of like startled, oh my God, something's there. Oh, right? I'm empathetic to that's a normal thing. That's a normal thing that you're not going to totally inhibit with dogs, right?
Because I mean, I'll see Huey, he'll be dead asleep.
Yep.
And then, the person who lives above us will drop something on the ground and he'll just pop up and do it,
Yeah.
And here's the thing, change in environment, we'll see that to your original point of moving, right? When the time that I flew with Vinnie to Florida, I remember we stayed in a hotel, and Vinnie has never really been reactive to things like outside, but he did the same thing. Like if somebody would get out of their apartment next door, or whatever it was, or hotel room next door, he would start, oh, what is that, right? I was still correcting for it. I still don't want him to do it, right? But because of that change in environment, he was on edge, right? That's why he was doing it more. He was concerned himself, right? And I don't want my dog to be in a concerned state of mind where they feel like they need to act on those things. I want them to look to me for that guidance. Again, it's not our dog's job to protect us. It's the other way around, you know? So that's the problem with that and that's what I tell everybody when they're like, I'm okay with my dog barking at the door or this or that. I was like, your dog ain't protecting you, right? They're protecting themselves. They need that. So it's a good one though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah, I was always really curious about it because like I said, I really only saw Huey do it when we had moved and we came to this new place, and he does it the worst when we're camping because you can hear so many things like outside the tent, and so like anytime someone gets up to walk past our tent, he'll be like, freak out. I'm like, oh my God, stop.
Yeah, I would be honestly getting on that probably much more firmly than you are if you're still seeing a lot of it.
I'm not getting on it super firm because honestly, I got on like when we first moved in, he would let out like a deep bark, which you rarely hear out of him. And so I got on that right away. Yep. And then after he stopped doing that, that's when he started doing like the more like low,
The problem is, again, like we talked about, I don't think these are two different things. I think that this is just a less intense version of this, but it's still the same thing. So because you've corrected for the big ones, you've suppressed it a little bit, but not all the way. Yeah. Vera was the same way. I remember when I first moved to Tremont with her, she would freak out the window at things that went by, and then I started correcting her for it, and then it turned into the alert barking. Then I kept correcting for it, then it went away altogether. Yeah. Right? So I know dogs are conscious enough to completely do away with those things. So I wouldn't want them to keep doing it. So yeah, definitely get on those little things. And here's the key. Get on them just as intensely as you would the bigger things. Because it's still the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, good to know. Watch out, Huey. Well, it's about to be
coming at you.
Yeah.
Watch out. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it's disruptive, right? Like when you're camping, he doesn't need to be huffing and puffing at everything that goes by.
It's really frustrating, actually, because we all know, at a certain point in the campsite, you got to be quiet. And then
That
at
is
3 in the morning, this dog's making all this noise.
Mm-hmm.
Screaming. So I do actually have to be out of here at like 1:37
Okay,
on the dot.
let's burn through one more.
Okay.
Real quick one.
Okay. That or what do you think? Or I think that's the best one.
I think that's right.
Okay, we have a question for you. What is
For Josh.
Well, no, but either one.
Oh, you looked at Josh when you said it.
Sorry,
I was like,
didn't mean to. My bad. But I actually did go to Cloak and Dagger because you were talking about it. You're like, oh, I'm taking all these pictures. Like, wow, these pictures
Place
are
is
great.
sweet.
So cool.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. So
They have a new drink menu out.
Do
I
they?
know.
I saw that.
So you have to go
go.
back.
the time I went, I got that little one with tequila. It's really cute. They put a little flower on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was really good. So the other question was, what's your biggest pet peeve with dog owners?
This is an easy one. Dog owners that don't come in with a open mind to things and think they know everything. Mm-hmm. I hate when, and I have plenty of clients like this, like still right now actively, I can think of clients I'm working with that are like this, right? That come in and we waste at least 15 to 20 minutes of the session debating why the thing that I told them is the correct thing to do. Mm-hmm. Right? As opposed to just, and this is something I had written down here right before, is doing versus understanding. Because you had mentioned when people understand the why, it makes them easier to follow. It makes it easier for them to follow through with things, right? Which I agree with. But I feel like people have to be open to just the doing part so that they can understand the why. Because I think you could explain things to them, but until they start doing it and seeing it, they're not going to understand that why as deeply as they need to, right? Just like you guys. You went through the process of being open-minded and wanting to understand things and doing the things that you guys were directed to do with that kind of stuff. Then you started understanding the why after you started seeing the results, right? So I think that's a fine balance of, when people come in for sessions, to get the most out of it, they need to just understand and follow the directions with things if they want to get the best results so that they can understand why we're doing it, right? And listen, there are certain things that we have to explain more deeply than others right off the rip. But if you're being faced with a lot of like, well, I do it this way, or I do it this way, or this has worked for me in the past, or whatever it may be, you're not going into it as open-minded as you need to, and you're not going to follow those directions, nor are you going to understand those directions as deeply because you've already just spent like 15 minutes debating them. So that would be my biggest pet peeve that I see with clients is the ones that come in with the cup already too full, where they can't accept as much information as they need. And we spend that time filling it as much as we can and then emptying it a little bit so we could fill it a little bit more, right? And I feel like we just don't get as far as we should because of that,
Yeah. Seems silly to pay all that money and just not
To just
listen.
not trust the person.
Yeah. I think everybody wants to feel like to some extent that they have a good enough grasp on things, and I think it gets in the way heavily, I think I used the example the other day. I was talking to I believe Emily or Bridget or something, and I'm learning how to play golf right now. I've never golfed in my life before, right? And, this is the first time in a very long time I've went into something new and have just sucked at it. Like I'm horrible at it right now, right? And I have a couple of friends that are actually like golf instructors, right, that are helping me work through this. And I went into it with the most open mind. Literally anything you tell me to do, I'm not going to question. I'm just going to do it because you know more than I do about this, right? So I know what you tell me is going to be correct. And because of that, I'm noticing the improvements, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if everybody went into new things like that, they would see far more success of like, I have things I need to learn from this person. And if I just kind of, for a not nice way of saying it, just kind of shut up and listen to it, like I'm going to get way further than if I tried to act like I already, because if I went into it with them like, oh yeah, I watched all these YouTube videos on it. And, oh yeah, that thing you're saying, yeah, I watched that before, so I already kind of know that. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know those things, right? So that's it. Is you got to be open minded about that kind of stuff, and you got to come into it clean slate.
Do you think that you see that because like people, you know, have lived with these dogs for X amount of time and have
Yes.
developed like all these coping, I guess you could call it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They already, I think the problem is we're competing with, I know more about dog training, but they think they know more about their dog, right?
Yeah.
Which they may know more about certain things with their dog, but I'm going to be able to understand their dog better, right?
Well, I think everyone, and like including myself, like I want to think like Huey is the most special dog there ever
Sure.
was, you know. But like at the end of the day, I have to realize he's not. He's literally just a dog,
He is
and
special.
I know he's special in my heart. But you know, like I want to be like this is his weird, quirky, unique personality, and really,
sure.
there's like so many other dogs have the same personality as him.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Jack and I always joke like Huey's like probably the most like boring dog to train because he just like doesn't do anything. He's just like so whatever.
The boring dogs are the good ones, though.
Yeah.
Because they're usually fairly easy.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, I don't know. Everyone wants to think like, oh, all of these things about my dog. This is its full personality. Let me give you the rundown.
Yeah, big time.
So,
Awesome. That was a good one to end on.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been real. It's been fun.
thanks.
Thanks for coming
Thanks for
on.
having
having
us.
We're going to get you out of here soon enough. Anybody have any last points?
Go to Miracle Canine. Take your dog there.
Learn about dog training. Train your dog. How about that?
Yeah.
We just say
Train
train
your dog.
your dog. Keep training your dog. Be open to training your dog.
Keep training your dog after you've trained your dog.
Yes.
It's a process.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Dobe.
Josh Dobey Productions, Instagram.com.
There we go. Miracle Canine Training. David the Dog Trainer. Do you guys want to tell people?
I'm private, so I mean, if you want to follow me, you can, but I would have to accept
That's
it,
fine.
and I don't accept many randos.
They're not going to accept anybody. It's okay.
Are you saying yours? Are we doing that?
No, I'm not because I've made a strict point that I only want to do it with people that I really, you know, care about.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
Hey,
if
listen.
you want to find me, you probably can. It's not that hard. I
Yeah.
comment on everything Miracle posts.
You
Find
can text
Margot.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Search for Margot. All right, guys, 3, 2, 1.